Year 550, Madoc Kingdom. Ramsay and his father are talking. His father pointed to the map, declaring the territory his. Hans Rugel, a lowly baron, held tiny land in Maddo's north, the farthest northern plot he showed Ramsay. Desolate land. Ramsay's eldest, Ball, ruled Rugel domain. His older brother Kun was an assistant, a mere backup. As the third son, Ramsay was neglected. He was just a useless mouth to feed. Ramsay grinned at the land news, declaring himself a Rugel family branch as Hans agreed. Ramsay decided to change his last name, separating from the main family. He'd now go by Ramsay Bartlett. Hans asked if it was okay, while Ramsay worried acting useless was too ironic. He wasn't thrilled, but understood, asking for startup cash. His mother handed him a bag of money, saying she'd prepared 1,000 rubles. Ramsay saw bread cost 1 rubella and decided to milk every perk of being the third son. His mother apologized, then asked if that was all he wanted. He opened his hands, apologizing for doing so little as a father. Ramsay smiled, telling him not to worry, he'd leave in a week. He left the house, heading to the village. Outside, he knew this was how it had to be. As a reincarnator, his mind was far beyond 13. Shitaro Ikaruga was a corporate slave until a truck killed him, and now he's reincarnated as Ramsay. With no noble ties, this third son had zero chance of inheriting the family. He could serve another noble via marriage, but chose his given land. He resolved to turn the wild land into his own village. Suddenly, his friend Dany showed up. Dany, the innkeeper's fourth son, couldn't inherit like Ramsay, so they were close. Ramsay greeted him, needing him to pick something up. He requested rye, beans, seeds, tools, cloth, and salt. Dany supplied him, asking if he was planning a journey. Ramsay explained it was not like that. He was told to leave, given land, and would live there. Dany was stunned when Ramsay asked if he was okay. He yelled that he should have known sooner, but Ramsay snapped he only just found out. Dany questioned the territory's location and size. Ramsay spilled everything, so Dany asked for his plan. Ramsay hadn't thought that far and flipped the question. Wasn't he furious they gave birth? He tossed them aside the moment they were useless. Dany reeled. Ramsay knew countless useless people existed just like Dany, so he offered his hand. They'd make them eat their words. Dany smiled, then tapped him. They'd take a shot. Ramsay was thrilled to have backup. Dany asked what to do. Ramsay asked how many villagers were like them. Dany replied, maybe 10 men and women. He sent him to tell the group they'd build a new village together, and Dany agreed to handle it. They parted. Ramsay stepped up to handle his part. At home, Ramsay and Hans pored over books and papers. Land info revealed, Hans offered more books. He told him to use this info. Ramsay needed crucial land info, especially weather, since without a rain chart, they'd only guess from village records. He knew mid-December snow stayed until late February, vanishing completely by April. He wondered if it was like Hackaday. Hans asked if the info helped. Ramsay confirmed it, then asked to see the map. Hans showed him. They eyed and discussed their territory lines. He pointed to the river as a border, and Hans agreed. Ramsay demanded to know who bordered the land east, west, and north. Hans explained the borders. Baron Bowden ruled the west past the Beverly Mountains. The Ted River marked the kingdom's eastern territory, and Baron Hendrik guarded the walled northern border. Ramsay worried about his timber and water supplies. He told Hans he was worried about the soil but would keep cultivating. He thanked him for the help and headed back to his room. Thanks for joining us today. Ramsay entered his empty room. He sat on the cot, ready to leave the storage room. He only needed clothes, a coat, a knife, a blanket, and 500 rubles hidden in his pocket. A spider web hung above. Not ideal, but free food was a perk. His corporate slave life in a black company was night and day. He stretched. Dany had to rally a crew and grab the land deed from his father. He had a massive job ahead. Then his door burst open. Brothers stormed in. They mocked Ramsay, taunting him for finally being disowned. Ramsay confirmed he'd lived there. He owned land. His brother laughed, calling him naive for trying to survive on that trash land. Ramsay's smile annoyed them. His older brother spat, frustrated, wishing he'd hurry up and die in that new territory. They left his room. As Ramsay cleaned up, he recalled an old world saying, better to be the head of a chicken than the tail of an ox. He stared at the stars and reached out. This was his second life, and he was seizing the chance. He'd be the head of the chicken, not the tail of the ox. With those hands, he'll carve a new world. Next morning, Ramsay reached his land to build his domain. He checked the map for his marked territory. He touched the brittle ground, and knew tilling would be a nightmare. He hit the mountains, finding birch trees everywhere. He knew wood wouldn't be a problem. He felt the soft, fluffy soil, Mountain dirt crushed the plains. He chose the mountain's foot for their base. Early rising paid off, but should he return to the village? By afternoon, Ramsay entered the village starving. Suddenly, a boy called out to him. Roger, the lumberjack's youngest son, ran to him, glad he found him. Ramsay asked why he rushed. Turns out, Dany was hunting him down. He heard from Dany that Ramsay led the village, but Ramsay revealed he was actually being forced out. Roger begged to join. His older brother bullied him for being fat and slow. Ramsay saw every household was the same. He was happy for more companions but couldn't feed extra mouths. Roger's family were generations of lumberjacks, but his older brothers took all logging rights. Remembering his mountain base plan, he asked Roger to clear the trees, and Roger agreed to handle the wood. They shook hands, Ramsay welcomed him, and Roger was ready. Soon they reached the house where Dany and the others The crowd waited as Dany called Ramsay out for being late. He asked where he'd been. He'd been scouting the area, then Dany introduced his new crew. Willie the farmer's fifth and Eric, the carpenter's second. Dany says these two are backing Ramsay's ambitions. Ramsay thanked them and asked why they joined him. Willie had no land left, so any field worked. Eric left just to escape his brother. Ramsay flinched at another sibling fight, but knew it was their way. Poverty bred hate here, killing their compassion. Ramsay vowed to build a village that wouldn't rot. Eric reminded Ramsay they weren't like him. If they failed, they could always go back. Ramsay was surprised but saw the truth. They weren't trapped. They could leave for the village anytime things felt wrong. It stung, but Ramsay knew dwelling was useless. He raised his hand, vowing the five of them would build a new village. Everyone agreed, hands high. Ramsay announced their plans as Dany and Eric teased him. Called chief and lord, Ramsay declared they needed a base house and to cultivate fields, assigning Roger and Eric to the house, Willie and Dany to the fields. Eric asks about wood, so Ramsay mentions mountain birch. Eric wants mock around for the house, but they'll have to hunt for it. Then he asks Willie what crops he grows best. Willie revealed his home ingredients, robins, wheat, garlic. He asked for seeds, and Willie agreed, not too much. They'd build a birch house, grow rye and beans, and scout mountain springs, using the river as a backup. Ramsay apologized for the rush, suggesting they start tomorrow. The others didn't mind, but Eric needed to prep, telling them to chop trees. Dany left as a merchant arrived. Everyone emerged. Ramsay introduced himself, declaring governance over Norden. Merchant Slay thanked him, then noted Ramsay's youth. Ramsay revealed he'd turned 13 this year. Dany told him what he needed, then showed him the cart full of goods. He asked their needs. Ramsay requested a year's worth of salt and nails, while Eric asked for 100. After settling on more items, the merchant's total hit 1,200 rubles. Ramsay balked at the higher-than-expected price. He needed food and emergency funds, so he told Slay to break down the cost. Slay listed prices: 500 for a year's salt, 300 for nails, 400 for cloth. Ramsay, a noble's kid, had no idea if it was fair. Dany stepped in, rejected the pricey cloth, and offered 700 rubles for the salt and nails. Slay said it left little profit, but seeing the eager kids. A good impression meant regular customers, so he accepted, and a thrilled Ramsay thanked him. Slay asked their build location. They'd head north to the mountain's eastern foothills. Slay promised to check back later and left. Everyone sighed in relief as Ramsay ordered them to pack and meet in the square before dawn. He then stopped Willie, needing a minute. They reached Willie's farm and found his mom working. She asked Willie where he'd wandered. Seeing Ramsay, she asked who he was. Ramsay Rughel introduced himself as Willie's friend, but the mom realized he was a lord's son. He told her to skip the formalities. He had a favor to ask. He wanted to buy her produce, asking how much she could make. She could take 3 large bags of rye, 1 of beans, and 2 small garlic bags. He thanked her and asked for the total. She dropped the 600 ruble price to 500. Ramsay paid up front, and she thanked him, promising to hand the goods to Willie. Ramsay headed out, sure he'd prepped just enough. Before dawn, Ramsay left his house. Parents saw him off. He thanked them for raising him, vowing never to forget their kindness. His mom questioned his work ethic in his territory, saying no need to leave so soon. He denied it, wanting to prepare quickly. He didn't dislike his parents. With those brothers around, he couldn't stay in that house. His father agreed, reluctantly handing over the territory deed as promised. Ramsay accepted, thanked him, and headed out. Soon he found Dany and the others. Dany called him late. Rans apologized, caught up with his parents. Willie showed him the food Ramsay requested. Ramsay thanked him, secure for now, but knew he'd need more supplies. Rugel's name scored him cheap deals before, but the easy ride ends now. Slapping himself awake, he told his squad, "Move out." Ramsay hit land and slammed a stick into the ground, and called this their base. Roger heads off to chop wood, while Willie checks the soil. Dany drew a blank. Ramsay needed a favor if he was free. He asked him to whip up a millstone. Dany's stunned and asks if he's serious, but Ramsay's in a rush. They need that millstone to eat the wheat. Frustrated, Dany stormed off to build the millstone. Willie saw him leaving and questioned him, but Ramsay told him not to worry. He was just scouting for stones. Willie warned him the soil and drainage were bad, and Ramsay agreed. Adding soil would help, and Willie agreed it was their only option. He grabbed a hoe, telling Willie to pick the best spot until Ramsay left Willie to it. He hit the mountains to check Rogers. He found him and checked in. Rogers reported good progress, plenty of birch. Higher up, beech and pine grow. Ramsay asks to plant more pine and birch. He thought pine resin could fuel them, and tapped birch sap would trade for a good price. Rogers said if they grow wild, they can plant them. Hyped, Ramsay said they'd clear the trees and replant to prevent landslides. He asked Rogers to grow birch, and Rogers agreed. He helped Rogers fell trees, while Willie tilled and Dany handled the milestone. At sunset, everyone gathered, and Ramsay offered to report their progress. He tilled, but the soil's bad. First, they need to till the soil properly. Mixing mountain soil comes after. Rogers says the birch is coming in nicely. They've gathered nearly 30 logs. Dany apologizes he found nothing. Ramsay finished the report, thanked the group, and dismissed them. Everyone had homes, so camping out was pointless. Amidst the awkward silence, Dany promised to build a better base fast. Everyone cleared out, leaving Ramsay to prep for camp. He needed water and fire. He drew water from the stream but had nothing to carry it, and starting a campfire was another problem. He realized he had no clue how to start. Forgetting the warm day, he faced an impossible cold night with no lighter. He panicked, but after a while he camped. Fire he wrapped in a blanket. He borrowed embers from Dany. He nearly froze. He thought he was ready, but he was totally unprepared for life here. He finally passed out. Morning came, his friends woke him. They pitied his state. Ramsay wondered when he slept. Eric knew he must build a house fast or die. Roger knew they needed proper food for strength. Willie resolved to grow crops fast to fill their bellies. They headed out, knowing they had to build a base fast. Ramsay said he must go too. He drank from the river. He was hungry, but first he needed to craft utensils. He couldn't make fine pottery, but learned basics in elementary school, so he'd manage simple earthenware. He mixed clay and water, then shaped a pot. It needed 2 weeks to dry, but he was out of time. He started experimenting, ready for failure. He let them sunbathe, then drove them to the campfire. At the right moment, he tossed it in. All that for an ugly pot. It disappointed him. He knew it hadn't baked long enough and had to monitor the fire's heat. He tested it, relieved it could at least hold water. He set the pot over the flames, then added salt, beans, and garlic. He cooked garlic bean salt soup. He doubted this even counted as cooking. With no utensils, he just dove in and guzzled it from the pot, satisfied. Who knew plain boiled beans were so good? Finished, he dove back into making pots. He shaped ugly pottery. He said practicality beat artistry. Rough or not, if it worked, it was enough. By evening, Ramsay realized pottery was a full-day grind and decided to try something new. Willie calls, everyone's ready. Ramsay heads over, and when he arrived asking where Dany was, Dany hadn't shown up. Rogers said Dany was pumped to find the best stone. Ramsay cried, believing he was crafting the stone knell. Eric showed him the cot he made. Ramsay thanked Eric, hyped for the progress. Rogers mocked the basic shelter, but Willie knew it beat nothing. At night, with everyone gone, Ramsay cleaned up, ready for sleep. His makeshift stove wasn't enough. Tomorrow he'd craft solid bricks from clay. He lay on his cot, a roof and floor bringing him immense relief. He fell asleep. He'd sleep great that night. Next morning, Dany and others greeted Ramsay, telling him he brought the requested item for later, gathered everyone and spoke. Let's dive in. Eric questioned why he's in charge. Ramsay split them into carpentry and farming teams, thanking everyone for their hard work. Eric and Rogers handled carpentry, while Willie and Dany farmed. Shelter was urgent, and rye had to be planted by mid-April. Ramsay pushed to expand the fields in 2 weeks, knowing they'd succeed if they worked together. Dany soon arrived, urging everyone to test his handmade stone knell. Roger voted for success, but Eric wanted it to fail, and Willie agreed. Dany forbade bets without permission. Ramsay called it decent, but Dany told him not to just play nice. Put in effort and grind. Trying it, they sensed something was off, questioning its function. Opening it revealed broken grinding and terrible efficiency. Ramsay sketched the nil's grooves in the sand, showing Dany the design. Dany griped it was a hassle, taking longer. The others wondered who won. Roger claimed he ground it, so he won. They discussed among themselves, and Ramsay happily saw their progress. Their Bartlett territory's true development starts. 2 weeks passed since Ramsay moved into the territory. He saw development thriving, now a true village. More allies changed everything, and 3 newcomers joined Ramsay's quest. Henry, 15, sociable and lived to draw. 19-year-old Gordon lived for justice. And caring, Charlie, 12, younger than Ramsay, was timid and frail. The 3 farmers' kids expanded the fields fast, but Ramsay noticed the village was becoming boys only. They upgraded the mill for fine flour, making bread and dumplings their main food. Dany also started living in the village. Ramsay hated his snoring at night. He beamed as his territory flourished. Next day, Ramsay announced it was finally planting day. Eric's finishing the house, so the 7 of them split the work to finish fast. Willie ordered everyone to cover the seeds. The mix was 70% rye and 30% garlic beans. Ramsay wanted it done in a day, but Willie gave them 5. Eventually, Henry announced he wanted a girlfriend. He asked Dany for a new girl, but the last one he met is already marrying his brother. He thought a house in fields meant he could marry. Dany joked he had fields, no house. Henry laughed, but Ramsay realized no women meant their territory couldn't grow. Dany asked Willie if he wanted a girlfriend, but Willie revealed he already had a fiancée. Everyone froze, shocked. Dany and Henry demanded, "Serious, where is she?" Willie confirmed, "She's Kathy from Peter's place." Frustrated, Dany re-asked if she was cute. Willie replied she was the type you wanted to protect. The banter dragged on until Eric returned to speak, but he stopped, asking where the others went. Ramsay claimed they returned to Rugal village chasing a dream, leaving Eric baffled. Days later, planting finished, and Ramsay led the group to explore the mountains. He said they'd climb the mountain in intervals to find wild strawberries and mountain vegetables. They rolled out to find water from the melted snow. Dany turned it into a race to the top, but Ramsay tried to stop him. Eric joined Dany, boasting he was Rugal village's sewer rat, so he wouldn't lose speed. Gordon quipped from the back, asking if that was a compliment. Dany claims he's the skirt lifter and won't be outrun, while Gordon asks if that's even a compliment. Dany snapped at Gordon to shut up, reminding him he was the only one with a girlfriend. Eric joined, complaining they talked fun stuff without him. Gordon bolted to get ahead. Dany tried to stop him, but the 3 sped past the mountain. Roger couldn't keep up with their speed. Ramsay asked if anyone found the spring water. Dany and Eric looked away, totally embarrassed. Willie and Gordon found several spots with berries, but no spring water. Ramsay realized finding it was tough. Suddenly, Charlie appeared. He told him he heard water. He led them back to the spot. Nearing the mountain base, Henry wondered if water was nearby. Listening, they heard water. Dany wondered how they missed it, but Gordon said they were too loud. Following the sound, they found spring water. Ramsay wondered how to get it to base. If they had bamboo, it would make a waterway, but he saw none nearby. He asked for rope, but no one had any. Ramsay used brute force to blast a path from the spring to the base. He planned it. One scout drops to either base, and Henry steps up. One by one, they descended, stopping in sight of the last. Gordon joined the chain. They repeated until Ramsay connects everyone with a line. They follow it. Trample the path. He told everyone to clear weeds for easier movement. Now they can round-trip the spring in 5 minutes. Ramsay declared the water source secured. Days later, Dany walked into Rugal village. Disappointed, Eric met him, and Dany asked for an update. Disappointed by another failed day of flirting, Dany also confessed he wanted a girlfriend. Eric said searching the tiny village for the girl had limits, suggesting they head to another. He knew they'd draw weird looks. Dany told him to wrap it up now. Suddenly they heard a noise. Ramsay's brother, Paul, asked his worker what his idiot brother was doing and why he stayed alive. Dany watched and recognized Paul as Ramsay's brother. Paul's workers reported Ramsay's village was cooperating. Fewer than 10 people helped, all third, fourth sons unable to inherit. Paul raged. Ramsay invaded his territory without permission, vowing to end him. Eric tells Dany that Ramsay officially secured his father's land, and it's driving Paul crazy. The worker pressed Paul for orders. Paul said burn the village. Eric and Dany were stunned. They rushed to Ramsay with the news. Ramsay welcomed them, explaining he and Henry mapped the area, Henry's drawing skills a huge help. Dany snapped it wasn't the time. Ramsay asked what happened, and they spilled everything they heard. Ramsay saw Paul's plan to torch the village and mocked his idiot brother for only causing chaos. Eric asked what they'd do if they actually attacked. Ramsay said he'd think, but Herrick refused to sit around. Ramsay just reassured them, returning to the map. Dany still wasn't convinced. Later, Willie told Ramsay he wanted to grow grapes. He asked if they could grow them there. Willie saw no problem. Grapes thrive even in bad soil. Gordon offered to help, having grown them at home. Henry craved wine, and Ramsay noted it lasts forever. He announced they'd prepare a vineyard. Everyone planned. Dany and Eric arrived uneasy. Ramsay told the group to finish up, and Gordon and Charlie took charge. Ramsay left them for Dany and Eric, telling them he had plans. Dany knew the truth about Paul. Ramsay claimed it would all work out, leaving Dany stunned. Ramsay left before he could speak, promising to talk again. Days later, Eric and Dany were back in the village, still unable to pick girls. Paul remained a problem, and Eric wondered what Ramsay was plotting. Dany wondered if the territory would burn, sending them back to square one. Annoyed, Eric grabbed his shirt and warned him to back off. He riled them up so he couldn't go back alone. Dany demanded answers and instructions, only fueling Eric's growing rage. He punched Dany, demanding he wake up. Dany smiled, wiped his face, kicked Eric's gut, calling that rich coming from him. The crowd saw the fight and swarmed them. Dany demanded release. Eric demanded an apology first. The crowd roared for a fight. Paul and his workers walked by, saw the crowd, and asked about the noise. Eric triumphed, then left. Dany hits the dirt. Paul recognized Dany. He ordered workers to take him. They lifted Dany to their base. Dany woke, battered from Eric's fight, unsure where he was. He's in a shed right outside Raugel's mansion. He was on Paul's turf, and suddenly Paul sat right next to him. Demanded why he was there. Dany stayed silent, so Paul demanded answers, reminding him he's no longer a villager and that he knows about Ramsay. Dany denied, laughing and shocking Paul. He hated the boring village life. He's returning to his village, introducing himself as Dany from Rugel. Paul laughed, but Dany continued. He asked who'd handle that boring land project. Paul invited Dany. Workers chimed Paul's place was best for good booze and beautiful women. Dany excitedly called it great. Paul smirked, spotting a gap in Ramsay's camp they had to exploit. He offered his hand to Dany, sealing the deal. He couldn't wait to team up. Dany shook his hand, sealing the deal. Days later, Dany's partying with booze and women, loving the life. He claimed drinking with cute girls during the day was the best, and Paul stared at him. He declared it was time to crush Ramsay's gang. The workers asked if this was finally it, ready to follow Paul. Dany warned Paul it was way too early to act. They might as well wait until autumn. Confused, Paul asked what he meant if he'd show mercy. Dany denied it, saying they were busy planting wheat and beans, so wait for harvest and take it all. Paul accepted. They'd wait until autumn so he'd prep to smash them. His crew was hyped. Back in Ramsay's territory, Roger approached Ramsay asking problem. He clarified not like that. Dany was missing, so Ramsay lied, claiming he was busy chasing girls. He wouldn't worry much about it. Roger laughed while Eric watched nervously. Eric tried to warn him, but Ramsay cut him off, already planning the next move. He said they'd meet Baron Hendrik, heading north. Everyone was stunned. Charlie asked if Hendrik ruled the north. Ramsay confirmed, planning to sell extra wood at Hendo's, the Baron's capital. With the cart loaded, he was ready to go. Herrick asked if this was the next move. Ramsay confirmed. Herrick then asked if Ramsay was heading to town for nails. Ramsay agreed, adding a wry insult. Hendo's was a half-day trip, so he'd be back tomorrow. Ramsay tasked Kathy, Willie's fiancée, with cooking for everyone. She knew he left. Hours of agony later. Pulling the cart alone proved tougher than expected. His spirit wavered. He finally reached Hendo's, but the walk took twice as long as expected. Going solo was a mistake. He should have brought help. Nearing the town, soldiers stopped him, demanding answers. A lumber yard worker, Ramsay, a first-timer, asked where to sell lumber. The soldier happily pointed him through the gate and to the left. The soldier opened the gate, warning him not to be shocked. Randy spotted the town. The vibrant energy stunned him. No surprise, it was the Baron's capital. He finally found the lumber store. He reached the shop and the owner greeted him, seeing the wood he had to sell. He read the word and spoke. Impressed by the quality and quantity, he offered 1,000 rubarbera. Ramsay considered. He demanded more, citing the long haul and its perfect condition. The owner proposed 1,200 rubarbera, his limit. Ramsay agreed. The owner gave him a bag of rhubarber. Ramsay thought, then left. Planning the next move, he found a seamstress. He ordered a custom suit. The seamstress asked his requests, a cheap, decent outfit for the lord. She offered the cheapest linen for 200 rubers. Ramsay agreed. She measured him for the suit and promised it'd be ready in 3 days. He exited the shop to Baron Hendrix's residence. He told the guard he was Baron Ruggles' messenger, seeking a meeting with Hendrik. The guard ordered him to wait and headed inside. They soon returned, apologized for the wait, and told him that Lord Busy could meet in 10 days and asked if it was acceptable. Ramsay agreed, assured his lord would be pleased. He walked away grinning. Right outfit chosen, Baron's appointment secured. He just needed to buy supplies. After buying nails, rye, and salt, he packed his cart ready to leave. It's already dark and he's broke, so he braves the night to head home. Ramsay returned to his village. Gordon, seeing his delay, asked if he was okay. Ramsay finished the prep work and announced he'd need Baron Hendrik in 10 days. Gordon apologized for bothering him, then said yesterday, passing Rugal village, he saw Dany with his brother Paul. He hated the thought but asked if Dany betrayed them. Ramsay smirked, ready to tell everyone. He told them something. Fast forward to June 25th. Rogers joined Ramsay to meet the Baron, stunned by Hendo's massive size. He thanked Ramsay, who admitted he needed the extra hands to sell firewood. Sell the lumber first, then explore the city. At the shop, the owner recognizes Ramsay instantly. He saw Ramsay brought way more, explaining he brought it in pairs. The owner asked for a moment to set the price. Rogers promised Ramsay a big payout. After inspecting the lumber, the owner finally made his offer. 2,500 rubra was his limit. Rogers reeled. They rejected the offer. The owner apologized, citing birch surplus, offering 2,700. Take it or leave it, find another buyer. Ramsay took the deal and sold the wood. Rogers disappointed, expecting 3,000 rubara. Ramsay said it couldn't be helped, leave the cart, move on. Arriving at the seamstress shop, she welcomed Ramsay. His suit was ready. Ramsay tried the suit and told the seamstress it fit perfectly. Rogers praised his look, and Ramsay thanked him, certain he was ready to meet the Baron. He asked, ready to move. They reached the Baron's place. He told the guards he was Hans Rugal and had commissioned his father's representative. He sought Baron Hendrik. The soldier called Rans Lord and told him to wait. Rogers finally remembered Rans was a noble. A maid welcomed them into the palace, thanking their patience and leading the way. Rogers marveled at its beauty. The mage led them into the room. They sat down and the maid left, telling them to wait. Rogers, still in awe, called it an incredible mansion to Ramsay. Ramsay agreed. It was the Baron's residence governing the area. He came to gain Baron Hendrik's assistance. Before he could finish, Baron Hendrik burst in, commanding the room. He apologized for making Ramsay wait. Ramsay bowed, saying he didn't mind, then looked up to spot Baron Hendrik. He doubted the Baron's support. Ramsay honored the Baron, introducing himself as Ramsay Rugal, son of Hans Rugal. The Baron welcomed Ramsay, identifying as Darrell von Hendrik, the territory's ruler. He gestured to a seat, asking what was on his mind. Ramsay sat. Recalling past life negotiations, he played it cool with his boss. He skillfully handled negotiations. A maid served them wine. Baron asked if he liked wine. Telling them to go wild. Ramsay thanked him but declined the offer, saying he was busy, and got straight to the point. He handed the Baron's butler the official paper, and the man took charge. He opened it for the Baron. The Baron read it and went silent. Ramsay, Lord Ruggles' third son, now ruled the Northern Territory. The Baron expected more, asking if Ramsay just wanted to be his retainer because he couldn't manage the wasteland. Ramsay refused the tempting offer, choosing a different path. He signaled Rogers, who handed him the money bag from selling the lumber. He flashed the cash, telling the Baron the letter granted him land and his new name, Bartlett. He asked the Baron for protection. Intrigued, the Baron recognized Ramsay as Sir Bartlett, but protection cost him. Acceptable, Ramsay agreed. The Baron asked his village's size. Ramsay replied it wasn't a village, just a 10-person settlement. The Baron promised the Hendricks 30,000 rubelet a year, starting next year. Ramsay was stunned. He needed 2,500 rubiala monthly. They only had wheat and timber, but the trees were vanishing and labor was scarce. He hoped the Baron would lower the tax. Before he could ask, the Baron snapped that not a single coin would be cut. Ramsay sighed. Desperate times called for desperate measures. He accepted the Baron's terms, who praised his wise decision. The butler handed him paper to write the order. Asked if that was all, Ramsay demanded one more thing. He told the Baron no interference for Lord Rugal. The Baron was stunned. Ramsay secured his father's land, but Rugal's jealous sons were already plotting to torch it. The Baron knew tax drops were bad, so he'd prepare a letter immediately. Ramsay needed a copy too, in case anyone dared to invade his territory. He promised zero consequences for taking down the invader. The Baron told Ramsay to forbid invasion. Disobeying meant severe punishment. He signed and handed Ramsay the letter. He'd notify Lord Rughull himself. Ramsay, grateful, took his leave. They left the palace. The Baron watched from his window. He asked Anthony's take, but the butler laughed at the idea that a small sum could sway them. The Baron told him to go easy on the desperate survivors, insisting a noble must endure it. He told Anthony his house loyalty was commendable, but it went too far. Anthony apologized. The extra tax revenue was welcome. The Baron agreed. 30,000 rubella for a few signatures was a steal. Expecting little, he wished Ramsay luck. Leaving the palace, Roger declared he was starving. Ramsay thanked him for company, offering to treat him. Rogers, overjoyed, scanned for food, demanding skewers, soup, and bread. Ramsay buys them, and Roger digs in. "Don't choke," he warned. Ramsay spotted a frail kid watching them eat. Rogers asked what was wrong. Seeing Ramsay's sight, he got sad too. He asked to act, and Ramsay was eager to help. He couldn't. Ramsay neared the child. He asked if his stomach shrank. The kid nods. Rogers gave him soup. The kid looked confused, but Rogers insisted it was delicious and told him to eat while it was warm. The child slurped soup. Ramsay realized even gluttonous Rogers was pushed to this extreme, but sating hunger wouldn't solve the core problem. Ramsay asked if the town had more like him. The kid nodded, leaving Ramsay in thought. He invited Rogers to help, saying he could. Rogers agreed to save the kids, vowing to help. Ramsay then thanked him. He rounded up the others at the lumber yard and went shopping. Rogers and the kid toured the town, collecting the homeless, jobless, and hungry. Ramsay hit the shop and stocked up. Rans reached the lumber yard to find a crowd. He praised Rogers for the massive crowd, but Rogers noted it only showed how many were desperate. Ramsay knew Hendo's shadows hid, starving people with no one to save them. He shouted for everyone to listen, welcome them as Bartlett citizens to save them all. "He's Ramsay Bartlett, Lord of Bartlett Barony, south of Hendrick territory." The crowd gasped. He revealed his territory lacked people, but promised abundant food if they cooperated. The crowd discussed. A woman raised her hand, asking what. Ramsay told them exactly what to do. Working hard and raising families in Bartlett would help the territory thrive. Women asked if that was all. Ramsay said future taxes were coming, but he needed their help building the village now. An old man stepped forward. They rejected him, calling him old. Ramsay asked his name. The old man, Archbold, showed his bad leg, explaining he couldn't help with development. Ramsay wondered what happened to his leg and asked Archbold if he could fight. Surprised, Archbold revealed he was once a mercenary. Ramsay spots the scar and calls him a warrior, begging him to train his defenseless land. Archbold was honored to help his old friend. Ramsay thanked him and shared the plan. He declared everyone had a role beyond manual labor. Volunteers report to him or Rogers. A woman instantly volunteered. Everyone agreed, so Ramsay started the list. He spotted 73 people. He tells Rogers to meet early morning and leave immediately, to arrive by night. Rogers reminds him they have kids and elderly, they can't overexert anyone. Ramsay headed back first. Shocked, Rogers explained he needed to talk to the village first. A sudden crowd would cause chaos. He agreed, staying back sadly. Ramsay put his faith in Roger, who vowed to give it his all. Ramsay saw a chance for the village to grow, but how to explain it to everyone? On June 26th, Ramsay returned to the village. Willie welcomed him, and Ramsay asked him to gather everyone. He announced Baron Hendrick named him a viscount, putting Bartlett under his protection. Henry and Eric were hyped. He heard Paul's crew was planning an attack and asked if it was about the recent incident, but Eric called it a hassle. Ramsay handled it. The Baron's letter to Rughull forbids interference, threatening severe punishment for any violations. Eric was excited. Gordon saw his deep worry. The bad news. The Baron demands 30,000 rubies every year for protection. Panic spread, but Ramsay calmed them. Rughull's territory paid double, 60,000 rubera, while their amount was lower than last year and they were exempt, so they could pull together. He had one last thing, not bad. Eric questioned his hesitation. Willie snapped, "Spit it out." Ramsay then revealed many people. People flooded the domain, catching everyone off guard. He explained what happened. Willie claimed beggars charmed Roger and Ramsay, but Henry and Gordon doubted it. Ramsay promised fair pay for everyone, asking if that sounded good. Henry praised the good deed. Willie cheered for a bustling village, and Eric only cared about girls. Ramsay shouted that everyone agreed. Gordon grabbed his shoulder, telling him to prep and split the tasks. Kathy prepped meals. Ramsay helped, suggesting ripe porridge to avoid shocking hungry stomachs. Willie handled the fields, while Henry fetched extra spring water. Charlie was lost, so Gordon told him to craft dishes and spoons for the new arrivals. Eric stuck to carpentry as usual, but he'd make sure cotton was ready. Ramsay asked about the houses, but Eric needed more hands to finish faster. Willie asked Ramsay when Roger's group would arrive. Ramsay said they'd leave early, expecting them by evening or night. Charlie and Gordon struggled with utensils, so Kathy helped them. Night, Henry searched for them but saw no one coming. Ramsay feared they were lost in the dark, so Gordon and Eric volunteered to find them. Searching, Eric asked if they were coming. A noise rang out as Roger appeared with backup. Roger waved. Ramsay worried he was late. Roger explained the cart was heavy, asking Eric to switch. Eric flirted with women, asking one if she was all right, welcoming her to his territory. Gordon scolded Eric as Ramsay asked about the unwell or injured. Roger confirmed they were good. He thanked them for the long trek and urged them to hold on. The village was just ahead. July 1st hits at the Rugal house. Hans summoned his eldest son, Paul. He and his sibling arrived, asking why he was called. Hans showed the letter. He told him to read. Paul spotted the Hendrick family seal. The letter shocked him. The Hendrick family recognized Ramsay Bartlett as a viscount, protecting his territory and people. Paul snapped, demanding answers and calling for a protest. Hans called him foolish, asking why he'd protest. Paul accused Ramsay of stealing land, but Hans countered that the transfer was official since the territory was empty. Frustrated, Paul left. Sibling chased him. He sighed, relieved to see Ramsay doing well. He realized Ramsay's old land deed request was a setup for this moment. Stunned by his son's insane foresight, he rushed to tell his wife Helena. Paul drank at home. Furious he nearly reached Ramsay, he was ready to crush everything in his path. His brother tried to calm him, but he snapped shut up and demanded they deal with those guys. Brother and worker abandoned him. Dany declared it was time. He confronted Isma, the hunter's third son, and vowed to take him down. Ozma told them to load the gear into his cart, and Dany was glad to have him along. Ozma denied it. His brother watched him, so hunting new lands was a good change. Dany counted on him. Ozma told him to head to the village first. Dany agreed, promising to catch up fast. Ozmo headed to the village, and Dany approached the girl from the pub. He tells Colette he's heading back to Ramsay. He asked her to join him. She needed a moment to think, slamming the door on his face. Rejected, Dany couldn't mope. He had other houses to visit. He invited Roger's, Gordon's, and Alice's girlfriends. They agreed to go to Bartlett Village. Dany was sad his girlfriend couldn't come. Next morning, Dany slapped Ramsay awake. Ramsay woke to see Ozma and Dany. Dany apologized for the wait and introduced Ozma, who told him to leave the hunting to him. Dany saw more people in the village and said much had happened. Gordon hugged Dany, stunned by the betrayal. Dany apologized, explaining he tricked his team to fool the enemy and buy them time. Eric arrived and asked what was inside his card. Dany grabbed Paul's weapons to keep them quiet for a while. Ramsay praised Dany's reliability, earning a grin, then promoted him to captain. Dany accepted, but he knew he messed up. Ramsay introduced Dany to Archibald as their soldier captain candidate. He'd trained them hard. Dany must listen to Lord Archibald. At Paul's, his worker woke him, telling him Dany and Ozmo vanished. Hall seethed, demanding how they dared treat him. He vowed to end them. July 3rd marked 4 months since the Bartlett territory formed. Population surged and the village buzzed. They created a registry for Hendo's movers, recording names, ages, genders to track harvests and labor. 73 newcomers arrived, 14 kids and 59 adults, mostly women. They're veteran farmers, seamstresses, and blacksmiths who previously survived on manual labor. They specialized in farming and assigned roles. Willie takes the rye, Gordon handles grapes, Henry gets beans, and Charlie grabs the garlic and turnips. Roger, Eric, and Ozma join the crew, each leading a new apprentice. Dany led 5 soldier trainees. The rest farmed and cleared land. Ramsay saw the village united and working hard. Now he planned to expand and create local specialties. Ramsay was happy. This was the life he always wanted. Days later, July 14th, Kathy approached Ramsay with other women. She pulled him aside for a quick talk. Ramsay felt uneasy as Kathy showed him the warehouse. Food was low, only 1 rye bag left. Ramsay knew it was bad. Kathy warned they'd only last 10 days. Ramsay told Tina call everyone. Aliza hit her limit, forcing Ramsay to consider an early village harvest. Once everyone arrived, Ramsay had a question for the group. He asked about their crops and when they'd be ready for harvest. Willie ready by mid-August promising yield. Henry, beans early August. Gordon, grapes need time, be patient. Charlie, turnips soon. Ramsay and the women eyed Charlie, so he asked what was up. Ramsay showed him the warehouse, explaining they were running out of food and getting those turnips quickly would help immensely. Charlie missed the April planting, leaving them with only 2 harvests. Kathy asks about the yield, but Charlie warns it'll only last a month. Women planned for turnips, beans, and other crops to last the month. But knowing turnips wouldn't last half that, they gathered wild greens and enlisted Osmo's help, impressing the guys with their reliability. Facing a food crisis, Ramsay needed a plan fast. Night he went to. Isma, calling him Lord, ran to him, but he stopped her. He told Ramsay to drop the formalities and ask for anything, so Ramsay brought up the food situation. After explaining, Ozma got it. To feed the village, they'd need big boars, and Ramsay asked if they could hunt them. Ozma noted large boars leave clear tracks. Tomorrow he'd hunt big game, and Ramsay was counting on him. Ramsay left Ozma's. He couldn't solely rely on him, needing a new solution, he pondered. Morning, Ramsay headed to the spring where the Tej River bordered the royal territory, convinced his plan would work. He tried stone fishing, smashing rocks to stun the fish and scoop them up. He tried to save the ecosystem, but desperate times forced desperate measures. He grabbed a massive rock and marched across the water, smashed a stone with it. Nearby fish float to the surface. He vowed to give his all for the village. He hauled in a massive catch and loaded his cart. He rushed it home fresh, knowing everyone would be happy when. He returned to find everyone discussing something. Kathy called Ramsay, demanding his location. He tried to bring up the fish, but she cut him off, saying it wasn't the time. Ozma hauled back a massive boar for the group. Ramsay tried mentioning his fish again, but Kathy ignored him, wondering how to cook the boar. Ramsay was crushed after giving his all, but Dany assured him it was just bad timing. August 2nd, a beautiful harvest grew. Ramsay asked to harvest, but Willie shut him down, saying they needed more time to ripen. He left Willie in charge of harvest, expecting a call when ready. Ramsay visited Henry, who reported a great harvest. Ramsay asked about expanding fields. Henry sorted tasks and would bring the map later for review. Ramsay offered to help farm, but Henry denied him, saying no need, just relax. Ramsay ditched Henry, bored out of his mind. He finished the expansion paperwork, but with Roger and Eric training apprentices, he was left bored. Dany came and saw him lazing. Dany knew Dany's plan and tried to avoid it, claiming he was busy, but Dany grabbed him, took him to Archibald, and declared Ramsay would start training today. Archibald liked that. As Lord, he'd fight to protect his people. He geared up and sprinted, struggling against the weight of his heavy armor. He practiced wooden sword swings. When he asked for an end, Archibald told him he wouldn't stop until his form was perfect. Then Archibald threw him into combat training, ingrained slash, step, and more. Ramsay and Dany clash. Dany admitted he still held a grudge. Archibald loved the energy, but someone called it a mere brawl. October 15th, Paul hit the tavern again. His workers noticed he'd been their way too much lately. Paul slammed his mug down, demanding more booze. The bartender apologized, no ale. Paul snarled, wine, mead, anything. Still annoyed by Ramsay, he plotted a way to make him eat his words. His worker Ivan stepped up. He told him to just kill Ramsay, but Paul hurled his mug, calling him stupid since his old man would stop him. I told him Paul might get banned. They weren't nobles, so nothing was off limits. Paul, surprised, burst out laughing, calling it a brilliant idea he couldn't believe he hadn't thought of. The plan was simple. Forget Paul Rudgel, pose as thieves and raid the base. With enemies unarmed, he ordered quick preparations, telling a worker they'd strike when snow melted. His worker, muscles itching, demanded action. Paul repeated he had no weapons. He said 3 months to prepare, but snow would soon pile, making it hard to set ablaze. He mentally warned Ramsay to wait. He was coming to level his hideout. Rans and Dany goofed off after a brutal workout. November 3rd hit. Winter neared their territory. Ramsay felt the cold breeze, knowing mid-December snow meant winter prep. He told Dany and Eric he'd hit Hendo's for supplies and needed their help. Dany and Eric volunteered to guard the massive lumber haul, but he knew they just wanted to hit the town. Everyone needs a breather, so he left it to them. The 3 reached Hendo's on time. The guard spots Ramsay approaching the lumber yard. Told the owner he had lumber to sell. The owner saw the mountain of top-tier wood and offered 9,000 rubri. Ramsay knew birch was oversupplied, so negotiating price might be tricky. Dany told the owner to make it 10,000 rubar. The owner refused to hold it and locked the price, stunning Ramsay. He confronted the owner about the promised birch surplus, demanding to know what happened. The man stammered, so Ramsay forced the truth out and promised he'd be back for more. Owner said the scoop was frontier Lord Hendrik. He hoarded all lumber, leaving them short. He brought triple the usual amount that year, wanting to stock up on all he could get. Ramsay gasped as Dany thanked the owner. Leaving, Dany questioned the massive firewood usage. Ramsay blamed the mansion's size, so Dany wished he'd hiked the price. Ramsay knew this secret would have stayed buried without him. Then he caught Eric staring. She asked what he wanted. Eric denied it, but Ramsay saw him eyeing charcoal. Dany noticed the pricey charcoal, but Ramsay said winter was spiking demand. Eric asked to make charcoal in Bartlett territory. Ramsay agreed. He remembers a TV show where idols built a charcoal kiln. Ramsay agreed, so a hyped Eric suggested making their own charcoal, but Dany questioned the point, arguing firewood worked just fine. Eric noted charcoal sold high. Dany countered, buy it cheap, making it a waste. Ramsay cut their argument short, admitting both sides were right. He told Eric to hold off. When asked why, he explained. Even if they made charcoal, underbaked batches explode, making them unsafe. Firewood and charcoal burn the same, but visible smoke prevents poisoning. Dany praised Eric's survival smarts, Rands. With spares, they should practice crafting to level up. Eric grinned and told them to finish shopping fast. They all agreed after stocking up. Dany questioned the massive haul, but Ramsay warned him food vanishes fast. Eric, frustrated Ryan was here, demanded wheat. Dany knew rye was easier to grow, but asked, why not just buy wheat? Ramsay said rye was cheaper than wheat. They needed quantity, and it was more nutritious. Eric and Dany were shocked. Ramsay knew that without hospitals, sickness meant death, so he ordered everyone to pack up and return to the village. They overpacked, making the load way too heavy. Eric asked when they'd return. Ramsay urged them to switch off and push. Eric told Dany to rest, he'd take over, but Ramsay knew the cart's immense weight. November 10th, Dany and Ramsay dug. Dany just told them no charcoal, so why build a kiln today? Ramsay hadn't planned this yet, but his logic was solid. He just realized something. The firewood weighed a ton. Carbonizing it removes moisture, making it lighter and easier to move, so Dany agreed to help Ramsay. Dating a large hole, they created a flue coating walls with clay. Ramsay warned Dany to line the bottom with straws. They packed logs and branches for charcoal, layering rye husks to cut off the oxygen. They bricked the entrance, lit the wood inside, and the charcoal kiln was done. Dany asked if it'd make charcoal. Ramsay was unsure, but hoped they'd refine it on the fly. Just then, two kids appeared from the mountain, gathering twigs. They ran into Ramsay and Dany, who questioned why they were so far out. The girl explained she was gathering firewood for the cold, so Ramsay warned her to stay near the village. She agreed. Dany offered help, but the boy sent him back to work. Dany replied he'd finished a task, as Ramsay considered more preparations. He asked Henry about winter crafting. Ramsay explained that once snow piled up, they couldn't farm, so he suggested wooden crafts. Henry asked if he meant spoons and forks, and Ramsay agreed. Charlie was already whipping up a prototype. Inside, they found Charlie and Aliza working wood. Ramsay praised Charlie's chair, but warned it was too small to sell, though perfect for the village. He saw Aliza's weird art and asked what it was, but she was shocked he couldn't tell. She told him it was a bear, fish in mouth. Ramsay gasped. He hoped for big sales, but Aliza knew her masterpiece was a guaranteed hit. Ramsay called Charlie, keep Aliza from their limited wood. Charlie agreed. Aliza sensed trouble, but Ramsay brushed it off, ordering the pros to carve figurines while the rest made spoons. Aliza agreed the plan was safe. Ramsay dumped the mission on Henry and Charlie to go scout the village. Eric called Ramsay with the crew ready, so Ramsay ordered the house renovations to begin. They prep houses for winter. To safely heat small homes and prevent winter frostbite or carbon monoxide, they installed simple fireplace flues. They made that area a fireplace, telling workers to ensure the chimney vented outside. He added all houses had the same structure, so they'd repeat it for the rest. Ramsay dismissed the group, and Eric's crew got right back to work. He was relieved they'd make it for winter. The first winter hit the Bartlett territory. Days later, Dany played snowball fights, but kids scolded him. Act your age. Dany called it too sweet. In a serious match, age means nothing. Just then, Eric's snowball smacked his face. He yelled, jerk. Eric shot back, slowpoke. They clashed, the children planning to gang up and take them out. Ramsay watched from his cabin, stunned they were still going in the freezing cold. Winter buried Bartlett territory, and snow reached his waist. Supplies were out, but he rushed to check on the residents still trapped inside. But he saw his funds were low. To pay Baron Hendrik's taxes, they needed steady cash, so he started plotting how to rake it in. He saw two paths. One, boost production and sell a mountain of goods. Manpower wasn't enough, so they streamlined farming and forestry. He imagined tractors and chainsaws, but their tech was too primitive, so he pivoted to a new plan. Adding value to the products. He needed a big seller. Grapes weren't ready and pelts were scarce, leaving only rye, beans, turnips, and timber. Rye was his best bet. Thinking rye, he heard Dany and Eric freezing. He called the kids' energy a problem. Eric agreed. They sat by the fireplace. The place had many dresses, and he craved inner warmth in the cold. Hearing this, Ramsay gets an idea. He'll use rye to brew alcohol, just like in his past life in the northern lands. Arjun, a northern exchange student, showed them how to brew alcohol from bread. The alcohol recipe he taught them was so simple, it barely stuck in his memory. Ramsay called everyone to brew alcohol. Willie and Gordon arrived to help. Gordon brought the promised rye bread, and Ramsay thanked him. They were brewing kvass, a light alcoholic drink popular in Russia. The catch, it wouldn't even hit 3% alcohol. First, bake rye bread golden brown, then dissolve yeast in warm water to ferment. They mix warm water, toasted bread, berries, and yeast in a jar and seal it. Berry sugar ferments into alcohol, boosting the flavor. Now only fermentation remained. Willie asked how long it should sit. Ramsay, unsure, said they'd taste it every half-day. Dany volunteered to taste, but Eric cut him off, claiming Dany lacked a palate and demanding Ramsay leave it to him. Ramsay brought it over, warning them not to drink without his permission. They drink it between and after. In days, the pot emptied. They slumped down, faces heavy with guilt. Others fumed, but Ramsay saw it coming. He asked for the best time. Dany picked the third morning, and Eric chose the second night. Ramsay asked if it was alcohol. Dany confirmed, feeling warm, he knew it. Willie said brewing was successful, but Gordon needed to know how much rye to use. Ramsay offered to check the ledger and calculate. Ramsay punished Eric and Dany for drinking it all by sending them to pick mountain berries. Eric whined about the freezing cold, but Ramsay didn't budge. They trekked through heavy snow to start. January 6th. A week after New Year, the cold still stung. Ramsay tasted the brew and knew he needed more yeast. Dany King yells at Ramsay. Ramsay told him to calm down, but Dany snapped that Paul was still out for blood. Ramsay raged. His brother was obsessed, and he wished that energy went elsewhere. He questioned Dany, who revealed he heard it while visiting his girlfriend in Rugal village. Ramsay said to discuss next steps, then told him to call Ozma and old Archibald. Dany agreed, leading them to Ramsay's. Ramsay apologized for the snowy interruption, as Archibald asked what mess they were in now. Dany explained Paul was stockpiling weapons and armor again. Ozma doubted the intel, so Dany mentioned Colette from Rugal village and suggested scouting. Ozma then asked, did Paul ignore Earl's warning to leave Ramsay alone? Archibald, warning or not, still demanded the Lord's head. Ramsay only cared if no one knew he was the killer. He argued the conditions were way too favorable. Dany learned Paul's win condition. Take him down. If caught or killed, he loses. They just needed to fend Paul off, taking minimal damage. Ozma warned burning homes would be a hassle, and Ramsay added Paul controlled the attack's timing, leaving everything in Paul's hands. Archibald plans to lure Paul out and strike. Cut. Said that it was best to, 5 words. S2. Ozma said that Ramsay would likely be the bait, but there was a risk of. Ramsay knew Paul's crew would play dumb, operating secretly. He said they should act after the snow melts. He told them to gather intel and prep a plan by then. January 11. Ivan and Paul rush inside. A worker spotted the armor and swords, calling them top-tier gear. He asks how Paul got it. Paul explains a merchant used it to bribe his father as tensions rise in the capital. Paul let him try the armor, ordering him to master that iron sword before they strike hard once the snow melts. A worker asked Paul to reason what to do about the rat that snuck in. Told him to drop it. Ramsay's allies infiltrated Rugal village, claiming to visit parents. Kicking them out was impossible, so he'd boost his strength, focusing only on Ramsay. Villagers didn't matter unless they interfered. He left his weapons and armor, warning his worker not to lose or steal them. If anything happens again, he'll make them pay. This terrified workers. Ivan headed out to deliver the gate to Tom and John on Paul's orders. He said Paul was demanding, forcing him to carry heavy bags through snow and rain. He reached Tom's house and pounded on the door. Seeing the lights on, he knew Tom was home and hammered harder. Tom opened the door, apologizing. Tom offered a drink and Iden agreed. Stepping inside, Iden spotted someone else already there. I asked who he was, and Tom called him his buddy. Henry introduced himself, bringing drinks, and told Iden it was nice to meet him. He called the drink kvass, not the best, but enough to get drunk. Seeing Ivan's bag, he asked what was inside. Nervous, Iden, unable to speak with outsiders, told Henry the capital was tense and conscription loomed. Shocked, Tom asked if it was true. Biden didn't know much either, Paul told him. He handed Tom the bag, saying it was for him, then downed a glass. It was surprisingly good. Henry agreed, but Iden hadn't had a drink since Paul started the chaos. Henry asked how much for the drink. Ivan offered 3 rubera for a mug, 5 felt too steep. Ivan and Tom laughed and joked, proving Henry's plan was working. In Hendrik's palace, he asked his butler the king's health. His butler warned he was dying, and the fight for succession was heating up. Hendrik called the throne war between the prince and the king's younger brother thrilling. King Magic V is dying, igniting a war for the throne between Prince Emo and his younger brother, Duke Ignis. Hendrik knew Prince Emo was the rightful heir, but the butler cut him off. The prince backed the empire. They saw the Pindura Empire's map, knowing he'd already married a Western Pindura princess, and the butler questioned supporting Duke Ignis, but Hendrik warned the empire only accepts the Holy Divine Church, a massive problem. He weighed their next move. The butler asked for his plan, knowing he had won. Hendrik laughed, realizing the butler knew. He planned to exploit the chaos and expand his territory. He vowed to attack Baron Borden. The butler knew Borden was pro-empire, married to a noble and rich from trade. Why would he invade? Hendrik vowed to create it from scratch. February 18th. Snow was melting, but the ground stayed slick. Ramsay headed to Hendo to restock the rye his research burned through. Dany arrived with a cart full of wood. Ramsay asked to leave, and Dany agreed. Stopping to rest, Dany asked where they could sell their wood. They couldn't sell lumber to their usual supplier. He asked for leads, but Ramsay denied knowing. He figured asking a local was the best move. At Hendrix's, Ramsay told the guard he was Ramsay Bartlett, wanting to meet Mr. Anthony. As the guard went for him, Dany exploded. "This is Hendrix' mansion, you can't just waltz in." Ramsay, unable to meet the count, simply asked for the steward. Anthony greeted Ramsay, who apologized and asked a question. He asked if selling alcohol here needed a permit. Anthony said he'd need one if he supplied stores, especially to the public. Ramsay denied doing business, claiming he was just raising funds for his excellency. He asked Anthony for buyers of lumber, wood, and alcohol. Anthony saw Ramsay as a bold monk. Ramsay knew Anthony's thoughts, but as a court rep, Anthony couldn't dismiss him, fearing rumors the count disrespected his vassals. Anthony sighed. Collins trades wooden goods for alcohol, soaps at the tavern, and Doggies has the best timber. Dany was bored, so Ramsay asked Anthony for capital rumors. Anthony demanded answers, just wanting Ramsay gone, but Ramsay asked if he'd heard the news and offered to explain. He warned of suspicious moves for the throne in the capital and asked for his take. He told Anthony she knew. Anthony was stunned. He played dumb to stay safe. Silence let him throw Hendrix lies back at him later, but he couldn't report the rising tensions alone. He underestimated Ramsay the bumpkin and saw how far ahead he'd planned. He pressed Ramsay to sell those goods fast. Darryl ordered his immediate return for a private talk. Ramsay promised to be right back. Leaving the mansion, Dany called it nerve-wracking and asked about meeting the Baron. Ramsay insisted he had to watch his guardian's movements. They reached Collins' trading company. Entering the place, it was packed with people. Dany calls the place bustling, while Ramsay identifies it as a top trading company. He spotted a group talking and told them Anthony sent him. Collins merchant Ashley, surprised by Anthony's introduction, asked if they had business. Ramsay confirmed, hoping to sell wooden goods. Ashley inspected the goods. He approved the price, 1,200 rubela. Ramsay considered it. Ashley confirmed they dealt rye, explaining they were the famous Collins trading company. Ramsay loved it and offered a trade for 3 barrels of rye. Dany suggested cash, but Ramsay refused, wanting the rye directly to avoid exchange fees. Ashley considered Ramsay's rush to meet Baron Darryl but scoffed, demanding he stop joking. Ramsay insisted he wasn't lying. He bet 4 barrels of rye if he's right and 2 if he's lying. Ashley saw a win-win deal and accepted the bet. Ramsay ordered him to move. Ashley told workers to guard cargo. At Darryl's estate, Ashley told Ramsay, "Now's your last chance to back out." Ramsay reached the gate and the guard waved him in. Ashley was stunned, but Dany just smirked. Inside, Anthony meets them, letting Ramsay pass while his friends stay behind. Ramsay entered the darkness to find Darryl Hendrick. He welcomed Ramsay apologized for his clothes, but Daryl told him to just get comfortable. Ramsay sat down in front of him, and Daryl got straight to the topic. He confirmed Ramsay's fears. The capital was in chaos and he'd exploit it to seize more land. Ramsay was shocked. He meant to use the ball for Daryl's help, but exposing his plan invited trouble. Ramsay sat silently. Daryl praised his golden silence. He revealed his target was the Western Borden Baron and asked Ramsay to fake a reason for war, leaving him stunned. He calmed down, then asked what's in it for him. Daryl asked what he wanted. Ramsay demanded land and money. Daryl couldn't provide land yet, but he had the cash. He offered 50,000 rubla for success. Ramsay also demanded a tax exemption, so Daryl gave him 3 years. Ramsay figured financial freedom was worth any price. It was a bad deal he couldn't refuse. Poison the well, go all in. Ramsay asks if it's a setup, and Daryl confirms. Ramsay accepted this and offered a proposal. The scene then shifted to Dany, drunk, telling Ramsay he and Ashley talked. Ramsay saw Dany had a blast, as the wine and dried meat never stopped. Ashley approached, apologizing for doubting Ramsay and promised 4 barrels of rye and lodging. Ramsay thanked him. He shook hands, eager to work with the man known as Ashley Aston. Paul revealed it was about time to act. He and his friends prepped their plan. He ordered everyone to move out. His friend was hyped to leave, and Paul agreed. They were hitting the base tonight under the cover of darkness. Ivan, scared, told Paul not to rush. Ramsay stole their crops last time. Paul said Ramsay changed his mind after hearing about the liquor stash, a massive haul on its own. Ivan realized Paul's sudden eagerness meant someone influenced him. A dark-hooded man stood behind them, smiling. Paul urged everyone to get ready, and they all listened. Walking through the night brush, he insisted they talk on the move. He said Ramsay's holed up in the biggest house. They'd strike there but stay quiet. Someone asked the plan. Paul surrounds the target with fire. At midnight, they can't stop the flames and the smoke finishes him. Someone asked Paul, was he okay not killing Ramsay? Paul replied, as long as Ramsay's dead, that's all that matters. He said those who overdo it tend to die young. The hooded man laughed, calling Paul brilliant and a natural leader. A worker asked about the hooded man, and Paul realized they were meeting for the first time. Keith introduced himself, staying tight-lipped but revealing he served a noble. Paul smiled, his luck turned. His worker said, if Paul says so, we trust him. The village is in sight. Paul orders the lights killed and tells everyone to mask up before closing in. Tell them to act like bandits. As night's silence deepened, entering the village, they spotted Ramsay's house. Someone asked Paul, is that it? Paul replied, no doubt. He ordered the torches lit and they went all out, hurling the fire. The house burst into flames. House burns, Paul laughs, shouting Ramsay's end. Villagers rushed out to find the fire spreading. A worker threatened the villagers to leave, shouting it wasn't a show and to scatter if they wanted to live. Dany and his men confronted the intruders, but the workers dismissed them as weaklings. Paul told them to support Tony, sure they'd win. Ramsay lunged at Paul, fully armored and wielding a sword. Paul blocked, shocked Ramsay was still alive. He pushed Ramsay away, realizing he lived. He asked if finding a lady saved his skin. Randy said it was pathetic, this was his brother, he could cry. Paul snapped back, telling him not to worry, about to make him cry blood. Grinning, he raised his sword and lunged at Ramsay. Ramsay blocked and parried, trading blows. Archibald's training helped him hold his own, but the power gap was immense. Ramsay struggled while Paul toyed with him. He knew he was finished, but he refused to back down. Keith calls Paul, thanks him. Keith declared it was over. Paul asked why, so Keith told him to look around. Where he found his workers captured. His 2 friends, Tony and Paul's younger brother Kuhn, died. He was stunned as Dany's fresh team stood ready to back Ramsay. Keith told Paul they were at a disadvantage. He needed to guide them to regroup and reassess. Paul fled with Keith. Dany tried to follow, but Ramsay stopped him, insisting the fire came first. Charlie and villagers brought water and buckets. Ramsay urged them, act now, contain damage to the base. Join Forge, douse the fire. Keith and Paul fled as Paul cursed Ramsay. He swore he'd never forgive him. Ramsay, Dany, and Ozma hit Hendrik's mansion looking sharp. Daryl apologized to Ramsay for the wait. Anthony greeted Lord Hans Rugal, who arrived looking absolutely crushed. Daryl slumped. He asks the group if they should talk details. Trancy summarized the Bartlett village attack and asked his father, Lord Rughull, if he had objections. Hans looked crushed, wondering if Paul was really asking Ramsay for proof. Ramsay told him all 6 attackers were Rugal village residents. Paul, Kuhn, Tony, Ivan, John, and Tom. They caught 3 and offered to bring them out as proof. Hans asks about the other 3. Ramsay reveals the mastermind Paul fled, ditching everyone. Remaining 2, Tony and Rugel's second son, Kuhn, died. Stunned, Hans hid his face to mask the pain and told everyone he understood. Ramsay will deliver the bodies to his estate later. Daryl smirked. Verdict time. He warned Rugel, attacking Allied territory after warnings is a grave offense. His son's actions don't excuse it, parents must supervise. He spared his life but stripped his title and lands, exiling him forever. Hans agreed. Daryl then stated Lord Ramsay Bartlett faces no blame for defending his territory, ending the uproar. Ramsay watched from the window as his father left in total shame and sadness. Dany sat the barren borderlands, unnerving him. Ozma agreed. Ramsay then apologized to them during my childhood. Mazma questioned the sudden suggestion. Ramsay apologized for poor communication, saying this whole incident. He plotted this with the Baron of the Borderlands. Flashback to Ramsay meeting Daryl with a plan. Paul is still out for blood, so Ramsay offers his endorsement and Daryl is hooked. Ramsay planned to spread rumors of a feud, baiting Paul into attacking Bartlett's lands. Daryl understood. Feigning his escape, the Baron would trap him, becoming guilty of harboring an attack. He told Ramsay it was a good idea. He signaled Anthony to make Keith the messenger, and told Ramsay he'd send the attack date early so he could focus on defense. Ramsay finished explaining. Dany understood Ramsay knew an attack was coming that day. Ozma said damage was minimal as they moved belongings, and Dany added the burned base was already set for reconstruction. Ramsay agreed, but apologized for endangering everyone, though Ozma told him no apology was needed. He made the right call and kept everyone safe. Ramsay was proud his people trusted him so much. Daryl emerged, praised Ramsay, and thanked him. He introduced George, a general in the Borderlands army. He ordered full invasion preparations, but first gave them bags of rhubarbara. He delivered the promised 50,000 rhubara, urging wise use. Dany and Ozma gaped at the mountain of cash as Daryl got a message from Keith. Paul reached Lord Borden safely. Now they plan their next move. Ramsay merged Rugel territory into Bartlett lands as agreed, then asked if he was sure. Daryl said they needed a reason to attack from there, making him believe his rightful land was stolen. And with Ramsay there, Paul wouldn't stay quiet. Demand Borden hand over Paul, or we'll take him by force. Ramsay asked if the Baron would just hand him over, but Daryl winked, promising to make him refuse. He demanded hefty pay for harboring Paul. Ramsay heard and thought Daryl was shrewd. March 8th hits. Paul waited at Borden's mansion. A maid interrupts, announcing Lord Costello has summoned Paul. Borden family head, Casella de Borden. Greeted him. Paul knelt respectfully, but Casella stopped him. He ditched the fake church act he used for business. He asked if Paul remembered the story, and Paul confirmed the Baron demanded safety. Strangely, even Baron Hendrik hated Ramsay. Keith hadn't returned, preventing any confirmation. Casello confirmed it, offering 200,000 rhubara compensation. He tore the paper. Hendrik claimed Lord Paul started the attack, stripping Paul's father of his title and exiling him. They announced Rugel territory would be absorbed into the Bartlett domain, shocking and enraging Paul. Stella explained Keith was wrongly exiled for his brother's rebellion, so he sheltered him in his territory. Cassel asked if he lied, but Paul swore the Baron was just hunting for an excuse to invade. Casella realized that's how it was. He knew obeying changed nothing. Refusing payment gave Hendrik the perfect excuse to strike. He won either way, but first he had to report to Lord Gardel. On March 12th, Ramsay told Eric he'd build a new stronghold, preparing for future attacks. He revealed plans to dig moats and build a walled fortress with a watchtower. He ordered Eric to rally Rugel village and start immediately, and Eric agreed to do his best. Dany asked if he'd see his father. Ramsay agreed. He heard he's leading the estate today. Ramsay caught his father Hans just in time. Hans was relieved Ramsay arrived. He prepped the files and briefed the villagers, telling him not to worry. He never imagined Ramsay's success stemmed from his neglect. Ramsay questioned his and his mother's fate. He offered them a place if no leads surfaced, but Hans cut in, revealing the man's exile put Ramsay's own position at risk if he didn't comply. They headed to the capital to find Helena's brother, a palace insider who could land them military jobs. Ramsay faked relief. Hans apologized for mistreating him. Still, he only caused trouble. He claimed Paul wasn't always twisted and used to care for Ramsay. Ramsay suddenly remembered their happy childhood together. Khan blamed himself for expecting too much, only hoping he'd expand the territory. He trained him in academics and martial arts. This result was his fault for pushing him too hard. Silence fell between them. Hans opened his bag and handed Ramsay their family's heirloom sword. He gave it, telling him to take care, calling him his son. Ramsay actually teared up. His bond with his father was weak. He knew he was a reincarnation. As the third son, he felt useless to his father. Ramsay cried. He realized Hans was his father. He remembered his mother holding him as he watched them leave. March 15th, Ramsay and his crew dug near their base. Lord duties stressed him. A mountain of thoughts overwhelmed him. He rushed to finish the mod in Bailey Fort and Moat. Then, someone called Ramsay Lord. Johnny from Henderson arrived. Ramsay demanded answers, and Johnny explained he was delivering the message since Dany was tied up. A letter arrived from Baron Hendrik of the frontier. Ramsay opened the letter, a summons. Stunned, he ordered Eric to gather them all. Rugal village carpenters complete the fort immediately. He told Johnny to tell Dany he's heading to Henderson. Johnny asked about his escort, but Ramsay brushed him off. Fort finished, they'd stock it with weapons, armor, food. He tasked Johnny with arrangements. Johnny agreed. Ramsay, panting, reached Hendricks at night. He told the guard he rushed but was late. The guard smiled, said they'd waited, and ushered Ramsay inside for a maid to guide him. Ramsay ditched his suit and followed the mate to Darrell's private room. He entered, apologizing for the wait. Darrell introduced Ramsay to the rest of the group. Meet Gilbert, Count Berkeley's flashy heir. Sweating profusely, the other guy was Oliver, Baron Lloyd's heir. Ramsay shook their hands, glad to meet them. They agreed. Darrell says they've been friends since childhood and will fight together again, but Gilbert calls their bond toxic. Darrell always dragged them into his messes, and Oliver agreed, calling his demands exhausting. Darrell cut the chatter and got back to the main topic. He reveals Baron Borden's letter. Gilbert grabbed it and read. Paul the Firstborn inherits Rugal territory. He's the rightful heir. Third son Ramsay must return everything. Refuse, and their army reclaims it. Ramsay declared war against their shameless greed. He said differing opinions forced a fight. Declaring war confirmed Earl Gardel supported Baron Bordeaux. Gardel's family was a top military powerhouse, but Gilbert warned they'd deface massive damage. Darrell claimed it, but the whole army was lying. Ramsay stays silent, while Darrell warns that a full-scale attack on Bartlett's land spells doom. But leaving the Baron's territory unguarded invites a strike from the frontier army. Oliver expects 300 troops, and Hendrik agrees. Ramsay knows it's a nightmare. The enemy nearly matches their entire population. Gilbert says Borden has 500 troops max, so sending 300 leaves his land defenseless. Oliver agreed. They'd lure them into the Baron's territory and ambush them with Gardel's troops. Gilbert saw the trap, and Darrell warned that 1,500 soldiers are hiding in the Baron's land. Underestimating them means total annihilation. Ramsay just listens. Oliver says conditions require triple force to take a castle. Gilbert asks Darrell how many troops they can move. He had 2,000, Ally 400, Jill 300, and Ramsay had. He stopped short, warning them not to expect much. Ramsay felt awkward as Jill counted 2,700 troops, readying the siege. An hour passed, and Ramsay realized they were just talking in circles. He couldn't advise strategy, but refused to just sit there, caught in the conflict. He spoke and all eyes turned. Darrell asked what's wrong. He reset the debate. Darrell and Baron Borden had crashed the succession war, and both sides were secretly plotting a land grab. Ramsay asked the group who would strike first. He tries to answer but fails. Ramsay warns that whoever strikes first is in a tough spot. He added the succession conflict meant Bartlett's territory was the first target. If Paul invades, the border lords strike back with full force, but attacking the Baron leaves Bartlett open to raids. Gil and Oliver agree. Ramsay said to make their move. This baffled everyone. Gil asked if he hadn't just said they'd be at a disadvantage. Ramsay replied he had a plan. Leading every troop leaves Darrell wide open, so he requests just 50 soldiers to turn the tide in Bartlett's territory. He asks Darrell what to do, and after a moment, Darrell smiles and agrees. He'd fund the mercenaries for Ramsay to lead, but any failure was on him. Ramsay took the deal. Oliver set the plan, and they kept strategizing. March 30th, at Borden's mansion, Guard Paul said Lord Costello requested his presence. Hearing this, Paul's hyped. Open door, find code. Stella faces the Gardel head, Ludwig. Costello said the young border lord leads 3,000 troops, nearly his entire army their way. Costello gave Paul 200 soldiers to stabilize his territory. Paul agreed, so Costello assigned him an aide to assist. Paul thanked him, vowing to be useful. He cleared the room and Paul bolted. Suited up, Paul flashed one last smile. It was time to judge Ramsay. He left the mansion to find Baron Borden's captain, Veronica, waiting for him. She was assigned to support the unit. Paul introduced himself and ordered battle prep. Veronica agreed. She ordered her troops to stand ready. She tells Paul they leave in 30 minutes and asks for the route, but he rejects her detour. Northern route risks Hendrik's forces. Southern route crosses Lord Dominic's land, inviting trouble. Both are long, risky, mountains are better. Veronica agreed, but her aging unit needed flat roads, not rugged mountains. She understood Paul. They'd take the mountain route, but a gentle path. Paul agreed, eager to show Ramsay. Back in Bartlett's territory, Ramsay finished the makeshift work, now running. He filled stream water, and earth walls protected their ample food from fire. Then a man called Ramsay chief, saying they were ready. This was Hawk, leader of the Black Eagle's mercenaries. Ramsay checked on Dany, and Hawk confirmed his squad was joining the Black Eagle banner. Merging with the army made sense, but the regulars were a weak mess. He wouldn't risk his men's lives on them. Ramsay agreed veteran mercs should lead. He warned not to waste troops, but Hawk laughed, telling Ramsay to say that to the enemy. Johnny arrives, telling Ramsay the weapons are ready. Ramsay asked Johnny for arrow count. Johnny reported 200. They weren't enough, so they told Johnny to wait. He asked Hawk for permission to stock up on arrows and have soldiers gather branches for recon. Hawk said it was fine. Ramsay thanked him, off to give orders. He watched the young lord, intrigued. Ramsay consulted him before moving troops, knowing the move is easy but execution is another story. Smiling, he said he could get work done here. March 31st, America. A shouting messenger jolted the village awake. Hawk asked what was happening. The messenger reported 200 enemy troops halfway up Beverly Mountains. Hawk was disappointed. He'd heard they'd fight 300. He called it a breeze, but Ramsay warned that careless losses aren't funny. Dany asked the messenger how long until the clash. Messenger reported enemy resting. They'll arrive in 1 to 3 hours. Dany ordered the messenger to rest, but he remained on edge. Hawk kicks their side. He warned him, stay this tense and you won't survive the real deal. He ordered the troops ready and summoned his surgeon, and Dany immediately set off. Ramsay asked if they stood a chance, but Hawk knew their numbers would win. They had to try. Ramsay found the uncertainty oddly reassuring. Dany reports the troops are ready to move, but Hawk orders a final check. He took command, giving Dany 20 troops and Ramsay 10. He commanded their 50 remaining mercenaries. Follow overall orders, but use your own judgment. Ramsay still found the plan vague, but Hawk reassured them the fork would hold the enemy with mercenaries alone, trusting they'd pull no dumb stunts. He says it's time to start. Paul's troops stormed in. He was stunned to see a fortress built so fast. Veronica reported the fortress bridge was raised. To breach, they'd need to build one or cross the moat. Paul asked what to do. Veronica reported no seasoned soldiers or reinforcements, so they could strike. Paul understood they'd advance as planned. They pressed on. Paul halted the group, ordering them into formation right there. An arrow whizzed past Paul's face. The shot barely missed. Shocked, he ordered his troops to retreat, wondering how arrows reached them from that far. He stared at the giant tower, wondering if it was the reason. On the tower, Ramsay and an archer waited. Smiling, he declared the range was enough. The height boosted their range but capped them at 3 inaccurate shooters. A simple barrage was enough. He shouted to the troops below, now's their chance. This enraged Paul. He claimed Ramsay mocked them, but Veronica tried to calm him. He commanded his troops to charge and take Ramsay's head. Archers held arrows. Hawk ordered them to wait until close enough to fire. He commanded them. Arrows rained onto the soldiers. Dany ordered, keep firing, don't let them near the fortress. Hawk asks for Ramsay. Dany's guarding against rear ambushes and Hawk calls him crafty. Soldiers fell left and right. Veronica warned Paul they'd be wiped out, retreat. Paul obeyed her and ordered his soldiers to fall back. Retreating to the forest, Veronica reveals they lost 50 men and can't surround the fortress. Paul asks for a plan. She suggested a night raid as a classic move. Paul asked if that would work. She paused, then confirmed it. She urged retreat. Intel was wrong, the fortress impenetrable. Paul agreed, then considered attacking the village, but realized plundering his own land was pointless. Paul needed the night to think. That night, Veronica woke to a sudden noise. Hawk and his mercenaries scolding soldiers for soft judgments, asking if they expected no night raid. Veronica commanded troops, don't panic, you have numbers, stick together. Hawk knew grouping up was a mistake, so he ordered his mercs to cause chaos and retreat. Back at camp, Hawk returned. Ramsay praised him, asking what they saw at the enemy camp. Hawk warned him their morale was dropping, they'd soon collapse. Ramsay told Hawk to order the soldiers to nap. As they prepped the morning charge, Dany questioned if it was necessary. Ramsay blankly told them if they do this, they strike hard. Dany panicked while Hawk stayed cool. Ramsay had to settle his grudge with Paul here, and his decisiveness pressured Paul. Hawks understood Dany's worry, but warned that recklessness would have been fatal since they're retreating soon. They should have whacked them on the way out. He said his squad and Ramsay's would pursue, Dany defending the fort. On April 2nd, a messenger tells Ramsay the enemy is preparing to retreat. Hawk ordered his men to prep for a charge. They were rested and ready. He joined Dany to hunt the nearby Lord's squad. They'd wipe them out before splitting up, and Dany agreed. They led soldiers forward. Hawk spotted them 30 left. Veronica stood brave and confident with her soldiers. Hawk ordered his soldiers, no mercy, cut them down, focus on the enemy ahead. He gave the order and they surged forward. Terrifying Veronica's force, Hawk demanded surrender, promising to spare their lives if they dropped their weapons. Veronica's troops surrendered, begging Hawk for mercy as she watched in shock. Hawk said they were clear, telling Ramsay to move forward. Ramsay's squad is arriving any second. Turning back, he saw Veronica holding her ground, warning the soldiers she'd fight to the end. Ramsay recognized her, ordered soldiers back. He introduced himself to Veronica as their commander, noting her renowned leadership. Veronica, captain of Baron Borden's force, stepped forward and demanded a word. Rans apologized, refusing the duel. He wanted her to surrender quietly for her safety. She wouldn't budge. Ramsay knew she was trouble and they might have escaped with Paul by now. He told Dany they were switching roles. They'd protect the fort, so go support Hawk. Dany understood. He rallied his squad to hunt Hawk. Ramsay offered to wait, but told her to look around. She saw only defeated soldiers and corpses. He told her she stood no chance against him. Veronica reluctantly surrendered. Dany's squire caught Hawk, seeing he was done fighting. Hawk reports the commander escaped, and they're powerless to stop him. Borden's army was decimated, including. Only 20 soldiers survived, as Paul barely escaped to the capital. The first battle ends with a crushing victory for Barlett's army. The border between Baron Borden and Count Hendrik's territory. Gilbert on horseback, flanked by soldiers, urged them to protect their lives and maintain the deadlock. He thought Darrell said it, but 3 days of indecision left him wondering if everything was okay. A soldier informed Gilbert a Bartlett messenger arrived. Gilbert said he'd see Darrell. He entered the tent and asked Darrell and Oliver about Bartlett. Oliver welcomed him back. Darrell announced the messenger's news. Ramsay's crew won completely. Gilbert cheered, Ramsay's got guts. He asked for the next move, and Oliver said he was pinning the Baron's troops to stop reinforcements. Darrell erupts in laughter, confusing Oliver and Gilbert. He said the status quo would shock Gilbert. They'd attack just enough to pin the enemy down without capturing the fort. Ramsay raised his cup and toasted their victory. Everyone toasted their victory with a massive cheer. Dany approached Ramsay, asking for the next move. Ramsay said it all hinged on Hawk. Drunk Hawk joked he was the chosen one. Ramsay asked if the Black Eagle Corps was still good to go. Hawks affirmed, vowing to keep raking it in. Ramsay smiled, demanding the next job immediately, shocking Hawk. He approached the tied-up Veronica, asking if she was okay. She screamed at him, "If you'll kill me, just get it over with." Ramsay told her to relax, he wasn't killing her yet. He asked if she was a captain, then demanded to know, ability or emergent. Veronica ignored him, demanding if he wouldn't kill her, he should just take her captive and do what he wanted. Ramsay realized she wasn't listening. He figured he'd wait for her to cool off. Just as he leaves, her stomach growls. He asks to negotiate. Soon he unbound her and fed her. He asked her to tell her story. She introduced herself as Veronica, 20 years old, a captain under Baron Borden. She was born to the head of the Mossman Trading Company and his concubine in Warden territory. Knowing she was noble, Ramsay promised to ransom her to Baron Borden and set her free. Veronica sadly smiled. The Baron won't pay ransom, nor her father Mossman. Most would rather buy gear than pay for her. Ramsay knew keeping her wasn't cheap. Veronica, a soldier, suggested he sell her to a slave trader. She offered her slavery, but she snapped, calling it ridiculous. Who would ever want that? He asked her what she wanted. She nearly cried at the question, saying she wanted to go home. Ramsay agreed and stood up. He vowed to get her home. Veronica was stunned by his kindness. Mossman met Costello, asking if Lord Paul of the Marcus family had fled in disgrace, and Costello praised his sharp ears. Losing 200 soldiers was disastrous. Paul was under house arrest there. Masman warns Gardel sent 1,500 troops, and no amount of gold is enough. Cassel's gaze softened. Casello pulled out a letter for Masman. A swift horse just delivered a request from General Holland at Fort Code. Veronica and 20 others were captured in Bartlett, and now they're being held for ransom. Masman vowed Costello would pay as a lord, but Costello apologized, his pockets empty thanks to Paul, who made him owe 180 soldiers' families condolence money. They locked eyes. The Muslim said abandoning captives would shame him as lord. Costello wasn't worried since they could play dumb, so he sent the military's biggest failure to handle the job. He knew Veronica was different. She rose by hard work, not family. Could he pay Masman's daughter's ransom? Mossman said they had to surrender. Costello gasped, asked if he'd pay the ransom. Masman refused, claiming his company was tapped out and he was broke. Costello thought, to Masman, she was just a bastard child. Suddenly, a soldier bursts through the door. Costello saw guests, then a soldier burst in with an urgent message. E's village to the east was under attack. Shocked, Costello asked if the Border Lord's army moved. The soldier corrected him, it was Bartlett's army. Costello was stunned. Hawk led Bartlett's army, ordering soldiers to burn the village and loot everything, ignoring fleeing villagers. Ramsay ordered Hawk to hit the Baron's village at the Beverly Mountains first. Hawk ordered them to grab food and valuables, then ski-daddle, no dawdling. He saw Dany's worry and comforted him. Told him, watch closely, this is war. Normally, he'd take villagers, especially women and children, but not this time. Not out of mercy, they'd just be a burden. He asked Dany, Dany got it. He slapped himself focused and ordered his men to pull out. Hawk knew it'd be tough on Dany, but he had to ready him for future command. At least the first battle wasn't a total loss. General Holland fumed when a messenger ordered him to pull troops from the front, calling it impossible and asking what Borden was thinking. Constant attacks have drained the army, and the Border Lord's motives remain a mystery. At this rate, Eastern enemies will soon ravage their lands. Holland asked the messenger for 300 troops, thinking it wasn't catastrophic, but anything could happen. Holland pledged 200 troops, but the messenger demanded an immediate dispatch. Holland fumed, what was Count Hendrik plotting? Cut to Gilbert and Darrell. Jill questioned how long he'd hold the stalemate. Darrell told him to cut the nonsense, keeping this until they won. Gilbert raged, asking if they could actually win. Oliver calmed him. Darrell asked for his take, and Oliver said not to panic, but they had to ration supplies as costs rose. Darrell stocked up just in case. Then a soldier snuck into their tent, whispering. Finished, Darrell noted things were going better than expected. Told him brace for all-out attack. In Bartlett, a messenger told Ramsay Darrell ordered them to slow enemy reduction. Ramsay warned Hawk and Dany the Count still wanted to ravage the village. Darrell called him greedy while Dany wavered. Randy warned it wouldn't be easy, the defense force was moving in. Asa village was crushed, so he targeted Mocha, Pina, or Toto to outsmart the enemy's expectations. Dany asked their aim, they couldn't crush them all at once. Ramsay suggested tricking the enemy, deliberately attack capital Boston. Dany's shocked, but Hawk laughs, calling the plan interesting but way too deadly for their own men. Hawk suggested the second largest city. Dany heard it was the barony's commercial hub, a tough target, but asked if it wasn't dangerous. Hawk said they'd cause a ruckus there, then attack Gauze. Suddenly, Veronica calls them out. Confused, they asked her what happened. She demanded they discuss strategy elsewhere, asking what they took her for. Ramsay laughed, apologizing, saying the fortress couldn't afford leeway. He asked her about the Baron's army moves. Veronica smirked, asking if he expected an enemy soldier to answer. Ramsay reported still no word from the enemy base. Veronica's face fell. They left. Ramsay told Dany to finalize and execute the plan tonight. Dany asked not to rush it. Ramsay agreed. He thought this would end it. Black Raven elites launched a diversion, drawing 200 Baron's troops away while Erlit's main force struck Gauze village from the opposite side. Count Hendrik's Forge launched his prepared full-scale assault. Cassel questioned his minister on the battle's state. He couldn't pull more troops from the front. The minister warned of an attack during rotations as they slowly lost ground. Hestella considered requesting Gardel's reinforcements but quickly rejected it. They'd arrived too late as the village burned. Ordered minister, send peace envoy to Count Hendrik. April 5th at Fort Code in Holland, Darrell and Ramsay met Costello to begin four-party peace talks. Renzi noticed Baron Borden and General Holland, Count Gardel's esteemed representative. He saw soldiers restrain Paul. Borden spoke first, apologizing for the fight with deep regret. Paul nestled. Darrell smiled, imagining his heart's turmoil, but that didn't concern them. He reminded them they repeatedly dismissed their requests and mobilized their force. Warden asked what he meant. Darrell claimed the Gorda Plain for his border lords. 200,000 rubella felt fair. Holland stopped him. He claimed the war was a misunderstanding. Finding evidence to confront Baron Borden would have stopped it all. Ramsay saw Holland's point. The border lord deliberately avoided military action. He claimed Rugal as his vassal and demanded the son, telling the failures to stop talking. Holland fired back, blaming Hendrik for mismanaging his vassal and demanding he take responsibility too. Ramsay realized they reached an impasse and asked Baron Borden what compensation he wanted. Warden deemed 50,000 rubella compensation fair. Darrell snapped, stood up, and ended the negotiations. He sent a swift horse to Gilbert at the front lines and ordered the army to charge. Holland ambushed him. Fighting now was suicide. Without troops or leaders, the fort was doomed. If only the Baron had managed the army and money. Holland told Darrell he understood, and proposed settling this at Gorda Plain. Orden was stunned, but Darrell said it was enough. Holland offered 50,000, Darrell countered with 150,000, and they settled on a clean 100. He told Darrell to end it. Darrell agreed, asking if Borden was satisfied. Borden nodded and Holland grinned. Pushing for the treaty and a ceasefire, Ramsay suddenly halted them. He wasn't finished negotiating, leaving everyone stunned. Darrell laughed. Holland called him a brat. They told him he wasn't welcome, but Ramsay found it hilarious. The war felt like a total misunderstanding. The Nat played the victim, claiming he was attacked first and shut out of negotiations, leaving Holland speechless. Ramsay demanded how he'd fix that. After silence, Holland said he'd hand over Paul, the root cause, to settle peacefully. Ramsay and Paul locked eyes. Ramsay found that useless. Holland and Borden are stunned. He was a lord, not a warrior, choosing profit over honor. Since Paul's capture was worthless, he rejected the deal. Warden asked if Paul ravaging their lands wasn't enough, and Ramsay explained border barons' mercenaries did it, so he'd see no rubella. Ramsay knew it was half a lie. Hawk's black caring shares settled before the conflict, but he knew no need to be honest here. Borden gave Ramsay the Beverly Mountains, but when Ramsay asked for the foothills, Borden shut him down, only the mountains. Ramsay liked the compromise. He demanded a written waiver for landslides and signed the deal. Ramsay demanded ransom for Captain Veronica and her 20 crew, but the other party boldly dismissed it, not caring if the captive returned, shocking Ramsay. They all wanted to return, asking if the captain was too vital to his force. The board couldn't pay reparations up front, making the ransom impossible. Ramsay realized no support from Veronica's father and the Muslim trading company. Holland declared, if they agreed, sign the ceasefire. Darrell and Borden sealed their deal. Darrell returns to the front, ordering Ramsay back to his land. Ramsay agrees. Holland asks about Paul and Costello orders him killed. Ramsay looked back at his brother, said his silent goodbyes. Paul bit his lip, accepting defeat. A lone corpse lay abandoned on the Gorda Plains. Back in Bartlett's territory, Dany welcomed him happily, saying they did it. Ramsay denied it. Dany asked if the war was over, and Ramsay confirmed. Dany left to report the victory. Hawk asked for the terms, and Ramsay revealed the barons surrendered the Gorda Plains and 100,000 rubella for just the Beverly Mountains. Hawks agreed and handed him the list of spoils. Ramsay claimed the food, textiles, and ironware. Hawk agreed, calling him a fair leader. He left to make arrangements, telling him the lady was waiting in his room. Ramsay entered his room. Veronica waited, then lit up seeing him. Seeing his face, she knew she failed and shrugged it off as expected. Lying on the cot, she told him to kill her, sell her, or use her body. Ramsay asked her to join him, catching Veronica off guard. Ramsay said he couldn't sell her, so he wanted her to serve him as his vassal. Veronica refused to turn her subordinates into sleeves just to save herself. Ramsay smiled, offering two choices. Refuse, he'd sell everyone to slivers. Work, he'd free the captives. Veronica stared at him, her eyes welling. She bowed before him, Veronica, vowing loyalty to Sir Bartlett. Ramsay tapped her shoulder with his blade, sealing her appointment. Another useless reject joined the ranks. He celebrated his victory with a massive party. Ramsay saw everyone having fun. Eric invited him, but Ramsay stayed back to catch up later. Days passed since the peace talks at Gorda Plains. Crisis over, the territory celebrates. Paul's bad Rugal hair reputation makes the Bartlett merger a breeze. Willie and Kathy arrived with a barrel, offering everyone a divine treat from the Lord. People lined up and Ramsay smiled, knowing they'd won and saved their smiles. His hands shook from his first real battle. Fighting was scarier than he thought, a world unimaginable from his peaceful past. But he must fight to protect this territory. It was his duty as lord. Suddenly, Johnny stumbled and wasted. He thanked Ramsay for the cast, but Ramsay credited his hard work. Johnny vowed to keep pushing. Ramsay told him to have fun. Johnny asked if he'd get drunk, but Ramsay declined. He had a mountain of work ahead. Back in his office, tasks awaited. Inspect acquired mountain land Rogers and the logging crew would handle it. Plant crops soon, securing food was tough. Build a large granary and train soldiers for the future. Dany showed up, asking why he was still working today. Dany offered Rans a drink, calling it a victory celebration to join. Ramsay agreed, then drank. Dany was relieved they made it. Ramsay agreed. He admitted they made it and owed Dany big. Dany stopped him, saying they were close. They looked out the window at happy citizens. Dany admitted it was tough, but glad they fought. Ramsay agrees. Dany leaves, telling him to visit later. Ramsay was glad Dany checked on him. He saw children singing, waving. He vowed to protect that view. On April 21st, Ramsay left to ask Veronica if she was ready. She confirmed 6 cash barrels moved, her men ready for action. Ramsay thanked her, but she asked if that was their only goal at Hendo's. Ramsay denied it, insisted they greet Daryl first. Ramsay hits Hendrik's mansion. Daryl greeted him. Ramsay congratulated him. Daryl gave Ramsay all the credit, but Ramsay called him too kind. He told Daryl he must go, he had matters. Daryl stopped him as he left, ordering him back tonight. Ramsay was confused. Veronica welcomed him outside. Leaving the mansion, Veronica saw the estate was swarming. Ramsay explained that after their victory, nobles were desperate to suck up. He asked why he was summoned early, but Veronica played dumb. At Collins Trading Company, Ashley acknowledged him. Ramsay called him rude. Ashley apologized, asking what happened. Ramsay thought he could get him with their territory's wine. Ashley grabbed the bottle, tasted it. He asked Ramsay the wine's selling price. Ramsay said 3 to 5 rubella. Ashley valued it at 3, making their buying price 1 per cup. Ramsay brought a massive barrel, so he suggested adding color to sell it for 2,000. Ramsay skips the cash, asking for a loom and livestock instead. Ashley has it all. The loom is 3,000 rubella, goats are 4,000, and chickens are 30. Randy offered 2 chickens and a loom for 4 barrels of wine, knowing a 1,000 rubella discount was too much. Ashley asked about the other 2 barrels, surprising Ramsay. Ashley then offered a loom and a 2-handed rooster for them, hoping to buy all 6. Ramsay agreed it was equal, but asked why. Ashley warns the sales figures are tanking. Ramsay agreed the price was fine. Ashley, pleased it helped them, left to make immediate arrangements. Veronica suddenly whispered in Ramsay's ear, startling him. He snapped at her to stop, and she apologized. She asked if it was okay, regretting she didn't negotiate better for better terms. Ramsay knew he'd need Collins' company later, making it a fair trade. Veronica agreed, merchant ties are vital. Ashley apologized for the wait, promising the plans and lively chickens by morning. Stopped by before heading home. They head out, Ashley waving goodbye. He gave the soldiers the night off and asked Veronica her plans. She's sticking with him, she is his bodyguard after all. Ramsay noticed her attitude was nothing like her prisoner days. Let's try. Ramsay saw her attitude had changed since her time in chains. 11 words, final choice. He suggested heading back to the border lord's estate, hoping they wouldn't make any crazy demands. He reached the mansion, found it crowded with people. Ramsay and Veronica panicked, realizing it was a victory party. He questioned the border lord's sanity, inviting him to this event. He spotted the elites whispering. Daryl greeted him, telling him to relax and enjoy. Veronica felt out of place, so Ramsay silenced her by shoving a hot dog in her mouth. He couldn't read Daryl's intentions, but it's a party, so don't worry about surroundings and just enjoy the food. After eating, Daryl took the stage to thank the crowd for supporting a rookie, crediting the victory to his comrades. He thanked them for all their help. He praised Gilbert Berkeley for slaying enemies on the front lines, and thanked Oliver Loy for managing supplies from the rear. He added, Ramsay Bartlett claimed he was the true hero of that win. Hearing his name caught Ramsay off guard. Daryl said Ramsay detailed the battle, and without him, they'd never secure the Gorda plan. Ramsay sat awkwardly as Daryl ordered everyone to praise him. Gilbert and Oliver laughed as Veronica clapped for him. He called the 3 to the stage. They stepped up, but Ramsay dreaded his sudden speech. Gilbert and the others gave strong speeches, then Ramsay was called last. Ramsay just wanted to finish quietly and stay invisible. He started his speech, introducing himself as Ramsay Bartlett. He credited the victory to Duke Hendrik and the lords of Gilbert and Oliver. He apologized for his failures, stating he'd train harder to help Daryl. He collapsed sick after the speech. Seeing her lord was sick, Veronica asked for a room and the maid led them to a private one. Ramsay sighed, calling it a dilemma. Confused, Veronica asked, wasn't it good Duke Hendrik and the nobles acknowledged him? Rands reveals the royals are split between Prince Emil and the Duke of Agnes, who backs the Baron. He was forced to publicly align with Baron Hendrik and the Duke's faction, though he never intended to side with either. The past was done, so he sought ties with the Princess faction to keep the balance. Early morning he left the mansion. Anthony asked why so early. Ramsay confirmed, thanking him for the stay. He sent his regards to Daryl. Anthony agreed, telling him to visit any time. He was their crucial ally. Ramsay mumbled thanks. Leaving, they meet Ashley. She asks if he's ready to take it back, and a terrified Ramsay agrees. He just wants to go home. Ashley realized the buzz stemmed from yesterday's victory party. His lord was there, and everyone freaked out, knowing Ramsay was his guest, and his name already spread town-wide. Ashley packed the cart with everything promised. Ramsay needed to build up the land before more trouble hit, so he asked Veronica how to grow the population. She suggested encouraging marriage or buying sleeves. Ramsay realized they needed to make money. On April 30th, Dany and Eric excitedly watched Ramsay craft a new dream. Ramsay wanted them to try it, but Eric wondered if it's different from speed. Ramsay brewed a drink stronger than K-Fast and gave them the first taste. Eric and Dany down their drinks and feel a massive kick. Ramsay reveals it's 10 times stronger than normal, and they snap that he should have warned them first. Eric called the drink insane, and Dany, trying it first time, asked what it was. Ramsay called it whiskey, fermented rye distilled into pure alcohol. Dany realized why Ramsay was buying copper and glasswork later. Ramsay asked how it tasted, and Eric loved it, reaching for another glass. Ramsay kicked them out. They banged on the door, begging for a sip. Ramsay's yield was pathetic, barely extracting a fraction of his mash, so he needed a faster distillation method. Veronica shoved Eric and Dany aside, telling Ramsay Baron Hendrik's messenger arrived. Messenger asked Ramsay, Lord Bartlett? Ramsay confirmed. The messenger threw him a letter, demanding he read Count Hendrik's message. Messenger left. Veronica called him rude, he didn't even dismount. Ramsay suggested he lacked authority. He opened the letter and read. Veronica asked what it said. Ramsay finished, then said. He ordered Veronica to ramp up training, revealing the letter was a summons. Morris family head Morris von Dodd appears as a mysterious hooded man Bose, honored to meet the Count. Morris addressed him as Lord Licht and offered a drink. Licht denied it, not much of a drinker. Morris urged him not to hold back. A stunning woman snatched his drink and took a sip. Morris praised her drinking, asked her name. She introduces herself as Pamela, claiming she's thrilled to finally get close. Pamela comforted a drunk, happy Morris in her arms. Licht asked Morris if he decided. Morris praised the choice but stalled for time. Licht expected it. It was the same old story. Pamela urged him to join them, silencing his protests. Morris tried to speak, but she shut him down instantly. Explained benefits of joining them. She whispered she was his all night, and they'd take their time. Morris, flustered, wanted to talk all night long. Pamela and Licht left. Pamela told him she'd see him later. Leaving the room, Licht apologized for putting her through that. Pamela knew he was the perfect fit. She asked if he'd seen his eyes, then told him to go while she handled that foolish Count. Licht understood he'd return with the Count. Morse betrayed the Maddo Kingdom for the Pandora Empire. Ramsay raced to Daryl's house. Daryl wrote Ramsay. Duke Ignes, fearing for the state, targeted traitor Morris, who conspired with the Pandora Empire to overthrow it. He wanted him to join force as a commander. Victories shared, Ramsay arrived at the Net Daryl mansion. Ramsay never imagined visiting so soon, nor expected his summons. Daryl laughed, asking if he was surprised and owning his trickster nature. Ramsay honored to see this new side. Ramsay realized the plot began at the party. He asked about deployment. Daryl reveals the target is Nidme, sending 1,500 troops led by George. Ramsay knew he had time to prepare, then asked Daryl about the nobles. Duke Ignes, Count Ronald, and Viscount Dennis were confirmed, and if Marcus Lure joined, they'd command over 1,000. He ordered Ramsay to serve him, but Ramsay demanded a reward. He told him the abolished Count's lands would be redistributed by merit. Ramsay called the Western land worthless, so Daryl promised to pay him back another way. But that demanded immense effort. He demanded 100 Bartlett soldiers, shocking Ramsay. Daryl repeated to Ramsay, prepare 100 soldiers, then he'd grant him authority. Veronica had 50 troops ready. Doubling them in a month was impossible, but Dara demanded he make it happen anyway. Ramsay asked him to contact the Black Raven Guild. Darrell agreed, but hiring mercenaries, he'd pay from his own pocket. Ramsay agreed, knowing war cost money. Never thought he'd feel this. Darrell revealed their base location. He wrote directions on paper, hoping he negotiated well. Ramsay reached the location and found a giant door. He thought places like these attracted unsavory characters, but he couldn't be picky. He walks in to find Hawk polishing his glasses. He recognized and welcomed Ramsay. Ramsay asked his business. Hawk ran his bar there. Hawk told him to sit down for some milk, saying he had a surprise for him. Done with his drink, Ramsay wanted the Black Raven Guild's help again. Hawk asked, "What now?" As Ramsay showed him a letter, Hawk read it, realizing the dupe personally called for him. Ramsay demanded 100 soldiers, and Hawk agreed it was a lot. Hiring them would cost a fortune. Ramsay knew he needed 70 from the Black Raven Guild. Hawk quoted 100 ruber per person. Ramsay figured 7,000, asking when to pay. Hawk told him not to rush while he gathered the numbers, promising to call in a few days to meet up. He threw him out of the bar. Ramsay could do nothing more. He headed back but remembered to call Ashley. Back now, he realized he was broke and had nothing left. The Duke's 50,000 rubera vanished. After paying for Veronica's squad, Hawk, and Ashley's gear, he was down to 300 per person. With funds below half, he had to overhaul territory production. Suddenly, a knock on the door. It was Veronica. She returned to find him locked in, demanding a deployment status update. Ramsay told her they must send 100 troops marching on Morse's territory by mid-May. Veronica, shocked, said it was too many. A Viscount only needed 20. She asked how he'd get so many. He couldn't handle it alone, so he hired the Black Raven Guild to build, but Ramsay's words made everything click. He slammed his hand against his face, admitting he'd been played. As he hung his head, Veronica demanded an explanation. Ramsay found 50,000 rubers up front odd. They paid that sum to trap him, block his escape, and force him to battle, so he relied on mercenaries, knowing the Black Raven Guild would return part. Ramsay knew he'd been played all along, he said. He stopped his grief, telling Veronica the Black Raven Guild sent 70 members, so she agreed they must pick 30 to deploy. Ramsay puts her and Dany on standby. Shocked, she asks why, but he needs them to defend the territory while he leads the charge. Veronica asked if he was okay, but Ramsay cut her off, ordering her to handle troop selection and training. She hesitated, then told him she'd handle it. She left furious. Ramsay wondered their next move. On May 17th, Hawk meets Ramsay. They asked if the Lord would lead troops. Ramsay insisted they join the winning side. Duke Ignis's anti-imperial force hit 10,000. The Count's side was 1,000 troops down. Hawks agreed. They couldn't read the Empire's moves, wondering if Morris would get support or if reinforcements were already converging. Ramsay felt unsure, but Darrell spotted him and thanked him for coming. Ramsay and Hawk bowed. Darrell reported his Hendrik army marched west 2 days ago. Ramsay stood up, vowing to crush the traitors. Bartlett troop sets off. The army pushed forward, but Hawks insisted they meet General George first. Heading straight down this road leads to the Count's territory. He asked Ramsay for a horse, but some scheming left him broke. Hawk laughed, asking what he meant. Ramsay put that aside, asking his smartest move. He started explaining his safest, most profitable option when Hawk cut him off. It had been raiding the nearby towns. This brutal battle meant leaving Dany and Veronica. Dany was already spent from the last fight's similar style. Hawk agreed to the tactic, but asked how to approach it. He warned if they kept attacking, his reputation would suffer. Ramsay didn't know every noble, but their pride would stop them from taking that role. He said if they were forced to follow orders, they could still change. Hawk agreed this looked like a winning battle, but lords would claim glory at the main camp. He told Ramsay to strike first and hard. Ramsay said they serve the Duke but demand independent authority, so they'll strong-arm the general. An idea hit him, and he asked Hawk for a map. Hawk gave him the map and asked, plotting something. Ramsay confirmed, call off the Borderduke army merger. Hawk questioned, defying the Duke's orders, but Ramsay was done being played and wanted payback. Front lines, Hendrik's general raged, demanding what Bartlett army was doing. He and the Viscounts waited for them. A Viscount said they shouldn't have summoned them for battle. Another wondered if new recruits to the Frontier Count's camp could even muster soldiers. Another heard party praises, asking if they got overconfident. A messenger bursts in with news from Lord Ramsay. The general noticed the messenger wore the Bartlett crest and fought with lavish gear. He asked the messenger where the lord was, their rendezvous delayed. The messenger dropped to his knees. He stepped up to report. Count Maurice's forces were attacking his lord. General shocked, Viscount panicked. We had asterisk to win. The general silenced the room and demanded the messenger's immediate report. Messenger reported their army moved from frontier count's territory, but Mode and Ryle volunteers ambushed them nearing the count's domain. His lord is fighting back to seize those villages, while the general advances his troops to join them soon. The messenger announced his lord would seize the northern village and fort city. Shocked, the general watched the viscounts argue that Ramsay couldn't conquer fort. As the domain's second-largest city with over 1,000 people, the feat seemed impossible, but the messenger confirmed it was true. The general argued it wouldn't work. Their forces struggled. He told his lord to take just 2 villages and regroup early. The messenger said his lord commands 100 independent frontier troops. With the general's power, defeating traitor Maurice is easy, but he needs rear support. The viscounts were stunned. Ramsay had 100 soldiers while they barely had 50. How did a minor noble command such an army? The general found the situation troublesome. This wasn't nonsense. Lord Darrell endorsed this lord-level matter. He understood, and told the messenger he expected greatness. The messenger laughed. A viscount asked if he'd let them run wild. The general replied Farlett's army didn't matter. The battle wouldn't change. He ordered them to depart too. Join Forrest. Duquesne's commands the march. Cut to Pamela and Morris. Morris hid under his cot blanket. Pamela asked how long he'd sit there, the sun already high. Morris panicked, shouting that a massive army was closing in. Pamela told him it's fine. The Count has capable subordinates. She grabbed his face, announcing the Empire's reinforcements were here, and Morris grinned as his mood lifted. Pamela told him not to worry and suggested they play more. They jumped into action. Outside, Lick and Percy stood guard. Percy hated serving that man, but Lick told him to shut up and do the job. Percy agreed he had a point. Litz pushed for extra effort. The old man ordered ministers to strike now. Hunkering down was pointless. No help would come. The minister argued they must hold on for Empire reinforcements, then ordered his guards to fortify defenses. A man spotted Percy and Lick, asking for Empire reinforcements. Percy and Lick locked eyes, and Lick confirmed they were in. The Empire organized troops, making fortifications safe. The man thrilled. He ordered guards to fortify the shop as Percy, and Lick shared a smirk. At Magic Castle, Crown Prince M.O. forbade reinforcements, arguing negotiations were best. Ministers asked if he'd abandon Count Maurice, their fellow ally. Mel called Maurice and Ignes essential, demanding to know the benefit of their bloodshed. It was the Empire, they couldn't risk conflict. His minister understood his intentions but asked his plan. He pondered. They'd seize Count Maurice's lands, distributing them to Duke Ignes and others. Shocked ministers warned this empowered the rebels. They had to show strength or lose the throne. It was time to use the Empire's might to wipe out Ignes' faction for good. We'll see this. He didn't want the throne, only a happy life with his wife and kids. New trouble flared, but the meeting was useless. Everyone was just watching their own backs. Ramsay and Hawk hid in the bushes as he reluctantly went home. He asked Hawk about the village size, and Hawk confirmed it was small enough for their group to handle. He told Ramsay he played it well, making the village seem to attack first, an excuse to plunder nearby villages. Ramsay said the main force brings no glory, they expected little anyway. Better to move freely, gather money. He said, stick to the plan. Hawk replied, count on me. The villagers bolted like hawks. He ordered his men to loot the village and herded the locals together, promising freedom if they didn't resist. Renzi had to maneuver to protect Bartlett's reputation. The Black Karen gang and Bartlett's force flanked the village, seizing hostages to force a surrender. The Black Heron gang gathers village treasures and supplies. They keep only march food, the rest goes to Bartlett's territory. 4 soldiers pull carts, sending back the untrained. The villagers gathered at the center for Ramsay's final speech. He bowed and apologized, shocking the villagers. He didn't want rough tactics, but couldn't defy Baron Hendrick's order, nor did he wish to harm them. He sent them to Count Maurice for safety and apologized again. Suspecting the Baron's plot, the villagers agreed to go. Hawksaw labeled Rand's an actor. After Rose village fell, he asked Ramsay about their next move in the fort. Ramsay agreed. Hawk left the strategy to him, so they pushed forward. May 21st arrived. 10,000 anti-imperial troops gathered in Count Maurice's western territory, exactly as planned. Prince Agnes led his army from the front. He addressed his viscounts and counts, thanking them for gathering. Maurice joined the Empire and ignored every warning. Now he's building an army, and they have to stop him. They had to unite the nation against every threat. Count Morse goes down now, and everyone's in. Ramsay stepped forward, demanding they head straight to the military council. He warned 2,000 enemies are fortifying. Morris expected Empire reinforcements, so they had to strike first. A count suggested an immediate all-out attack. Ramsay warned of great cost with the Empire lurking, so he aimed to minimize losses. Another count asked what to do. Ramsay tried to speak, but a soldier cut in. A messenger needed General George. George hesitated to invite the messenger inside, but Ramsay said it was fine, it could be urgent. Bartlett's messenger arrives, and George demands to know his business. Messenger reported Lord Ramsay's plan. They attacked Mode and Rose village, but villagers escaped to Morizia Castle. Shocked, Jurg blamed battle chaos for their escape and demanded the messenger explain why the villagers weren't captured. The messenger warned sending villagers to Morris Castle strengthened the enemy, explaining they couldn't capture them due to low supplies. George argued they should have eliminated them, asking why he let them go to Morris. The messenger replied his lord found more advantage in taking the castle. George was stunned as Ramsay questioned the orders, but the messenger confirmed they'd keep raiding villages and dragging everyone back to the castle. Ramsay dismissed the messenger, but he paused to ask for her lord's name. He told them his lord was Ramsay Bartlett, the Viscount under Baron Darrell von Hendricks. Agnes praised the messenger and dismissed him. Ramsay questioned why he spared the villagers, sending them to the enemy's castle. What if the enemy used it? Ramsay announced their strategy, a siege on Count Morris Castle. Everyone froze in shock as a count refused to agree. They weren't commoners, but elite nobles whose pride would be ruined by such a shameful fight. Ramsay heard, pondering the nobility's responsibilities and retribule. Governing the land was crucial, but he valued prestige over practicality, so Ignes asked Ramsay for an alternative. Ramsay urged the crowd, push through before the Imperial army arrives, then prepare to advance west. 3 brooding 4 and 5 asked 6 what 7 was 8 wrong 9. That's 3 words cut, let's try, I. Ramsay claimed the count was weighing on his mind. Ramsay reads the battlefield. Its groundwork fascinated. Back with Hawk and Ramsay, Hawk asks for the next move. They'd taken most villages, only Fort remained. Ramsay agreed, troops were low to transport seized supplies. Ramsay suggests surrounding Fort as a bluff, and Hawk asks if they can pull it off. They couldn't surround them, too many people. A soldier approached Ramsay. Distance remained, but an unknown cavalry unit closed in, shocking Ramsay and Hawk. Hawk ordered his guards to intercept. Ramsay wondered if the unit was scouting or delivering a message. Hawk stopped them, demanding their commander's name. The men claimed to be General George's messengers, Baron Hendricks' representative, and asked if this was Ramsay Bartlett's army. Ramsay confirmed his identity, and the stunned messenger apologized for staying mounted. The general called a meeting, so hurry back to the main camp. They pointed him southwest toward the main camp. After they left, Ramsay asked Hawk for his take. He said acknowledging the independent cavalry immediately led to a meeting. He didn't get it, but they had to go. He ordered his troops to move, making Ramsay wonder if the battle had shifted. Hawks reached the main camp, awestruck by its massive scale and countless soldiers. A guard asked for Lord Bartlett, then fled. Ramsay confirmed his identity. The guard's polished gear made him suspect a high-ranking noble. The stunned guard told Ramsay that Duke Agnes summoned him. Ramsay followed, shocked the Duke was actually there. He left the army to Hawk. Shocked by the Duke's arrival, Hawk told Ramsay to push ahead. Arriving at a tent, the guard announced himself, apologized, and presented Lord Bartlett, then ordered Ramsay inside. Just seeing the Duke, Ramsay knelt, introduced himself, saying he heard he was needed and rushed there. Ignes told him to relax and stop being so stiff. He claimed Ramsay, the Duke's aide, ran the business, not him. He told Ramsay to answer his questions, since Ignes was too kind to get mad over small things. He asked why his army attacked villages. Ramsay told him they simply moved to weaken the enemy. Ramsay backed the sabotage but asked why he let them flee. Ramsay argued they were fellow subjects, and since victory was certain, killing them was just cruel. Ramsay asked why he didn't just enslave them, filling his coffers and killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Ramsay replied his army lacked resources to transport slaves, a tough decision, but they chose to spare their lives. Ramsay called it off. His plan failed, and it's now a full-blown siege. Ramsay questioned him. Ramsay called him fake for sending villagers to Morizia Castle to deplete food, expecting Duke Morris to flee to sea. Ramsay smiled, said what's done is done, and asked for siege suggestions. Ramsay asked what else they could do, arguing they should just attack given the troop difference. Rosie said that would increase damage, wanting to win with minimal losses. Ramsay thought he said it, but they had no military training. Ramsay called this only an example. He suggested something, then left after talking. Ignis asked Rosie his thoughts on the strategy, and Rosie saw room for improvement but liked the overall direction. He added Ramsay, for a rural lord, was capable, expecting fine pieces from Baron Hendrik. Ignis hated being shown new toys, and decided to leave his mark on this one too. By May 23rd, Morris was under immense stress. He grabbed Penilla, demanding to know where the reinforcements were. Frustrated, she agreed to check, then left the room. She entered the room and praised Percy for a job well done. Pamela asked for Licht and learned the soldiers roped him into helping. Pamela asked her, time to leave. Percy said she and Licht planned to sneak out tonight. Pamela was surprised, she hadn't heard. Percy said she hadn't told her, telling her to give it everything. Furious, Pam demands they collect the jewels the Count paid for. Licht stepped in, looking troubled. Pamela was relieved he survived. Percy asked what was wrong. He said something clicked. Even as night fell, the Ironous Forest refused to retreat, storming the gates without using arrows. Pamela said breaking gates was quicker. With so many, they'd target only the castle gates. Litt agreed, numbers were overwhelming, yet the gates remained unbreached. They had too few troops, almost like they didn't intend to take the castle. Percy said they feared Empire reinforcements, expecting them while holed up. Licht asked if that was true. Pameless dismissed their plans, demanding Licht find an exit. Surrounded by enemies, Litz's group blended in with the villagers to escape. Luckily, the townspeople had already taken refuge in the castle. Percy said they had no choice, so Pamela told him to wait while she packed fast. Licht saw Duke's army's cunning plan. Crafty strategists wore them down without escalating damage. May 24th, Lord Douglas and Lord Dobie discussed the battle. Rebels attacked day and night, leaving split troops no rest. The real killer, arrows, consumed too fast, their lack proving deadly. He asked his men about Licht and Percy, but they found nothing. Dobie told him enough. The Empire cornered them from the start. No reinforcements were coming. They were just pawns used to bleed the kingdom dry. He warned them no reinforcements were coming, surrender was an option. Douglas knew surrender meant execution, so they'd fight like warriors to the bitter end. Dobie warned they were dragging everyone into the crossfire, but Douglas insisted they fight to avoid slavery and force better peace terms. A soldier reports a heavy enemy push, so Douglas takes command and rushes to the front lines. Dobie knew a general couldn't afford to mistime the retreat. He entered the room to find Morris huddled under a blanket, paralyzed with fear. Dobie urged surrender. No Empire reinforcements meant no win. Morris refused, asking for Pamela. Dobie gripped Morris, then slapped him. Tells him to wake up, war rages. He revealed Pamela was gone, the Empire used them. Morris realized, sinking in disappointment and betrayal. Ignis asks Rosie for an update. She says the enemy is exhausted and the castle will fall in days. Ramsay's plan is working perfectly. They flashed back to Rosie and Ramsay's talk. Ramsay suggested moving the army in 3 shifts. He split the army into 3, rotating troops to cut losses and attack non-stop. They attacked without arrows. Sieges made resupply tough, so their stock would still dwindle fast. Ramsay suggested easing off for 2 days to limit casualties and exhaust the enemy. Rosie pushed for arrows to pressure the wall, noting headless ones worked. She warned if this lasted days, soldiers couldn't waver. Suddenly, a guard entered. They reported the enemy showed signs of surrender. This shocked Agnes, and after a moment, Idnis and Lord sat as Count Morris von Dodd, and companions arrived bound. He knelt. Ignis asked why they changed their minds. Morris admitted victory was impossible and refused to hurt people for nothing. If surrendering his life saved them, it was a small price to pay. He and Agnes locked eyes. Agnes went silent, promising the soldiers and townsfolk safety and freedom. Morris claimed no regrets and demanded his head. Agnes signaled his soldier, who drew his sword. He beheaded Morris in one swift strike. He pulled on a cloak. Agnes questions Douglas and Dobie about the Count's territory. Dobie admitted their fault, but said they were just puppets for the Empire. Dobie spilled the truth. They'd pressured Lord Morris to marry, promising a daughter with special powers. He was interested, but his bride never arrived. They offered plausible reasons for a Count's bride, but had no real plan. 2 imperial generals arrived to protect the prince, but they betrayed him and turned their bows against him. The generals vanished without a trace. He claims they fled, knowing the castle was doomed. They fell into the Empire's trap. No reinforcements, surrender was their only option. Morris deeply regretted trusting the Empire's lies, a mistake that devastated his soldiers and citizens. He offered his head, begging for the citizens' mercy. Ramsay wondered why the generals withdrew so easily after infiltrating, suspecting the Empire's aim was just to sow chaos. They asked the rumored genius Rosie for a strategy, but she's completely clueless. Dobie confessed the siege's constant attacks wore him down, and typeless arrows annoyed him. Rosie understood and pointed at Ramsay, who flinched. The crowd buzzed about the kid's genius idea, but Ramsay wondered why she picked him. Rosie clapped for silence and moved to the next matter. Ignis ordered his guards to drag Dobby and Douglas away, vowing to announce their fate soon. He announced the rewards to the crowd, the first honor of the General George got the campaign, everyone clapped, but Ramsay sensed a setup. No one stood out in the operation. Even with Councilland, the lost gold and lives are gone forever, and only the top nobles will see rewards. Agnes finished the rewards ceremony, praising everyone for their hard work. As the crowd thinned, Rosie called Ramsay. She thanked Ramsay for his work, and he appreciated her kind words. Rosie says Anis has a reward for him too. Stunned, Ramsay follows her to meet him. Ignis thanked him, crediting his strategy for their easy victory. Ramsay felt flattered. Agnes wanted to reward him, but with no land near Bartlett, he gave him a bag of gold instead. Disappointed, Ramsay accepted it. North Hendrik March no land, east King's Domain off-limits, west Borden Barani, south untouchable. To enrich the land, they needed crops and people. He couldn't expand their territory further. Agnes saw his face and knew Ramsay's goal. She said aiming higher was the key. Ramsay froze, Agnes had read his face. Ignis told him to seize the land he wanted. He devours the Borden Baron. Stunned, he burst out laughing. He said it was impossible, the strength difference too great. Count Gardel's weak army stood no chance. Ignis asked if he still bore Lord Darrell's wounds. He would help him. Scared, Ramsay asked for time to think. Hawk saw him return. I spotted his gold and asked for a cut, but Ramsay ignored me and kept walking. Ignis offered help, but they weren't even neighbors. To him, the Bartlett versus Borden and Gardel war was already decided. But for the town's happiness to continue unthreatened, he couldn't spark conflict. He wanted a slow life building his territory, but things are falling apart. He returned to find goats roaming his territory. Veronica welcomes him to the lively camp, now stocked with supplies and livestock from her master's expeditions. Ramsay explains goats eat anything and thrive in barren lands, making them perfect livestock. He told Eric to set up the chicken-goat pen, but Eric was already on it. He kept offering ideas. Dany cut him off, apologized for the sudden pressure, and sent him straight to reception. Room, a visitor waited. Shocked, Ramsay met a well-dressed man at reception who led him inside. Told Ramsay he'd finally made it. Confused by the man's long wait, Ramsay insisted they had no appointment and demanded to know who he was. He admitted his error. He introduced himself, Hendry, Baron Elma de Dominic's legitimate son. Ramsay knew Baron Dominic ruled the land south of Bartlett. He questioned his arrival, demanding Lord Henry's business. New neighbor Henry stopped by, timing his visit for Ramsay's return from fighting Lord Hendrik and gifting him a sofa and table. He sipped the wine, intrigued, and asked if it was cast. Ramsay raged Dany served Henry Cass. He sat, admitting Henry's words made all his hard work worth it. Henry liked it, asked if he could teach him how to make it. Others said only Ramsay knew. Ramsay refused. This resource was a goldmine. He'd never share his secret recipe. Was Henry really that naive? Henry demanded he sell it and asked the price. Ramsay jacked the price to 3,000 rubella, even though he knew it was a total ripoff. But Henry immediately took 10 barrels. Ramsay, surprised, agreed to prepare and send it. Henry told him to visit if the time came. Ramsay asked if he meant at home, wondering if he was acting like a school kid. Henry set the date for 4 days away. He left, saying he'd wait for him. Dany called Henry a whirlwind. Ramsay just wanted a break. Run on June 3rd. Roger and Dany pushed south of Bartlett territory. Roger, exhausted from the cart, groaned, "Are we there yet?" Ramsay claimed it was finally time for his first city visit. Roger tried swapping shifts, but Dany refused since they just started, so Roger settled for a quick break. During a break, Ramsay asked their post-delivery plans, assuming they'd return to the village. But Dany denied it, saying they'd head to Dominican territory, then forgot the capital's name. Roger reminded him, Dominion Dortum. Dany wanted to check it out. He and Roger begged Ramsay for money. Ramsay offered it as a reward for the haul, but only after the delivery was finished. They eagerly ran to the cart. Roger, energized, told Dany to leave the cart. Ramsay called them greedy. Soon he reached Dordom, seeing a massive concrete building. He spotted a massive line and guards at the gate. Merchants packed the entrance, but soon it was finally their turn. Ramsay told the guard he was from Bartlett territory, sent by Lord Henry of House Dominic. Guard signals another, apologizes to Ramsay, tells him to wait. Ramsay's surprised by the sudden shift. He figured spoiled Henry would get off easy. Suddenly, Henry arrived, apologizing for the wait, questioning if he'd waited too long. Ramsay told him not to worry, but Henry insisted they head to his place immediately. He was as pushy as ever. They arrived at his city mansion. Ramsay spotted two people at the gate and he asked Henry who they were. Henry revealed they were his parents. Ramsay bowed, apologizing. Henry's father told him not to be formal. Henry hadn't brought a friend over in ages. He invited him in, hand on shoulder. His mom mentioned delicious treats too. Ramsay asks about the goods, but Henry's family handles the rest. A worker buys the hall, paying Dany and Roger. Ramsay saw this was awkward. He couldn't deny their friendship. Crucially, he must avoid upsetting neighboring lords. Andrew's father, Elma de Dominic. Ramsay bowed and introduced himself, but Elma told him to loosen up and have fun. Ilma cried that Henry finally made a friend. His mom brought food and cash to share, but an embarrassed Henry told her to stop. He urged Ramsay to leave, who thought the family seemed surprisingly normal. Henry led him to his room. Hang your coat anywhere. Henry laughed, admitting he showed a side he regretted, while Ramsay praised his top-tier furniture. Henry said their family made their fortune through trade, and his father bought his title from a struggling royal family. Because of this, aristocrats saw them as enemies. Ramsay knew his happy parents pitied his loneliness, and Henry wasn't innocent either. Henry ordered him to play nice for the family. Shocked, Ramsay knew nobles put family first, but he refused to just nod and play along. He asked Henry to tour the city. Henry clarified Doroden. Ramsay agreed the trade hub was worth scouting, but he judged their friendship as they spent time together. Henry grinned and said that no one knew this city better than he did, boasting he knew the city best. So he would show him everything and would show him everything. They went out visiting shops and markets when a shop owner stopped Henry. Ramsay offered wine, but Henry declined, promising to visit tomorrow. Ramsay noticed the locals loved him. Henry then saw a fried bread stall, asked for 2 fresh ones. Ramsay realized it'd be hard to fit in with this free attitude. Eating fried buns, Henry asks if Ramsay's land lacks towns like this. Ramsay says they usually trade at Hendo's. Henry told Ramsay, "No more formalities, no one will scold you." Ramsay agreed, and Henry noted Hendo's was massive, but their trade held strong. Ramsay laughed down. A massive castle caught his eye, and Henry asked what was wrong. Ramsay asked if this church linked to the minor church. Henry said the city had many empire merchants, even a prayer place ready. Ramsay clenches his fist. The Dominic family is pro-empire. If true, the Bartletts would face Duke Ignace, trapped by Baron Borden in the west and Count Dominic in the south, but Henry dismissed the concern. They explained their neutrality, siding with none. A trade family, they served anyone who paid. He left. The captain moaned about having 0 offers, but Ramsay told him to quit the self-pity. Henry asked if he found what he wanted. Ramsay spotted a captivating flower. Henry says the flower's from the Empire, small but beautiful, but Ramsay recognizes it's different. He knew this was a potato flower, grown in his past life's grandma's garden. He aggressively told the florist he'd take the flower. She said it cost 5 rubarbera. Ramsay heard this, realizing they hadn't valued it as food. Henry asked if he liked flowers. Ramsay, silent, replied flower picking was a gentleman's pastime. Henry shot him a weird look, snatched him, and promised a trip somewhere special. He led him to a mysterious alley where Ramsay questioned the shop and the alley's safety, but Henry reassured him he was a regular. They reached the shop door, guarded by a man. The man welcomed Henry, and Henry introduced Ramsay. Ramsay greeted him, then asked, "What's this place?" The man declared this a slave shop, and he was Morris, its owner. They entered the shop, and the rumors made Ramsay uneasy on his first visit. He asked Henry what he did, and Henry sought someone to play with, offering a job and pay at his house. Henry left smiling, and Morris told Ramsay to speak up if he liked someone. Ramsay recalled Veronica said they needed sleeves. He couldn't let past feelings about buying sleeves hold him back. He found sleeves of every age and gender at different prices. He spotted a door, asking Morris what lay inside. Morris asked if he was interested and wanted to look. Agreed, they entered a giant hall. Morris explains they've gathered former nobles, priests, and their children, all highborn elites. They're proud and hard to handle, So buyers are rare, but they sell for a fortune. Ramsay realized even high-ranking nobles were just slaves here. A chained boy waits as a dungeon meeting sets fate in motion.